In a modern office, a young man with intensely stressed eyes tells someone named Kubo-san he is at his limit. He learns from the panicked voice on the phone that two teammates are also quitting, with a deadline tomorrow. His expression is strained as he listens to his superior's frantic words. The voice on the phone desperately pleads for him to come to the office to discuss the situation. Hiding in a bathroom stall, his mind is a frantic echo of pleas for help, crushed by the looming deadline and his team's collapse. He laments giving up rest and returning home just to try and meet the impossible schedule. A close-up of his eye reveals his utter exhaustion and the depth of his despair. Realizing how little he's rested, he decides to take a short break, leaning against the stall wall. His consciousness fades into a blur of darkness as he succumbs to exhaustion. A gruff voice startles him awake, admonishing him for sleeping so soundly. A rugged man with a mustache angrily orders him to get out of the wagon, calling him trash. As he's shoved out, he is shocked to hear a high-pitched, childish voice escape his own lips. Tumbling to the ground, he initially thinks it's a dream, still believing he was in the office toilet. He looks at his hand in disbelief, realizing how small and unfamiliar it has become. Landing painfully on the dirt, he looks up with the wide, innocent eyes of a young boy. The horrifying realization dawns on him with full force. He has been turned into a child. A woman on the wagon looks down at him, remarking that he's a nuisance and they are behind schedule. Sitting on the ground, he struggles to comprehend the bizarre and terrifying situation he is in. He surveys the rustic camp, realizing this dream is far too realistic to be fake. Standing up, he looks at his small, childlike body, questioning what has happened to him. A hand offers him a bowl of simple porridge, telling him it is time to eat. Clutching his head in anguish, he desperately wishes he would wake up from this nightmare. The woman who offered him the food regards him with a cold, detached expression. She chillingly remarks that he missed a good opportunity to die an easy death. When he questions her words, she tells him to eat so he'll have a buyer. He desperately asks where the wagon is headed, seeking any information he can get. The woman is surprised that he is unaware of his own destination. He learns with wide-eyed shock that they are traveling to the royal capital. A sweeping vista reveals the massive fortified city and its grand imposing castle. He finds himself lined up with other prisoners at the grim and foreboding slave market. An auctioneer enthusiastically announces the beginning of the slave auction to the crowd. On the auction block, he is presented as number 1, a 6-year-old boy with bidding starting at 1,000 G. He overhears potential buyers dismissing him, saying he will be disposed of if he doesn't sell. The bids from the murmuring crowd slowly climb, reaching 800 and then 900. He reflects on his grim fate, being sold as a slave in a completely unknown world. In the crowd, an elegant elderly woman and a stern-looking man watch the proceedings intently. The bidding price plummets to 500, and he looks on with wide-eyed despair. The noble-looking pair in the crowd exchange a serious, knowing look. The auctioneer calls out for any final bids, but the crowd remains silent. His auction ends unceremoniously, and he is shocked at how quickly his fate was dismissed. Just as he is led away, a man steps from a doorway, interrupting his departure. The man presents him to his new owners, stating that this is the product they requested. The man formally addresses the new owners by the name Bartholomew Sama. The elderly woman and the stern man, his new masters, look at him with calm expressions. He recognizes them as the very same people he had noticed in the auction crowd. The auctioneer announces that he will now begin the formal process of transferring ownership. The boy looks on in confusion as the auctioneer tells him to comply with the procedure. The elderly woman holds out her gloved hand, gently asking for his. He hesitantly extends his shackled hand, wondering what they are about to do to him. A brilliant magical light erupts from his hand as the ownership contract is formed. The stern man Falco curtly tells him to remain quiet during the magical procedure. The boy and his new mistress look on as a bright light engulfs his hand. His heavy slave shackles shatter as he wonders if he is witnessing magic. The auctioneer takes his leave, his business with them now concluded. Falco asks his mistress what name should be given to their newly acquired slave. The boy is bestowed his new name, Lenos. The trio stands together, the newly named Lenos looking tentatively at his masters. The elderly woman introduces herself as Elsa von Bartholomew, his new mistress. The stern man is introduced as Falco as they prepare to depart by carriage. Falco gives a slight smirk before patting Lenos's head, remarking that he's a tough one. By a stone well, Falco looks down with a pensive, thoughtful expression. He suddenly splashes a bucket of water over Lenos's head, startling the boy. Lenos reacts in shock as Falco instructs him to stay still. Falco murmurs an incantation, his hand glowing with a soft, magical light. Translucent magical bubbles swirl around Linos, instantly cleaning away all the grime. Linos exclaims how clean he is, while Falco casually explains it's a simple type of magic. The boy marvels at the confirmation that magic truly exists in this new world. Falco's expression suddenly shifts to one of rage, shocking Linos completely. He furiously demands to know what kind of backwater place Linos came from. Falco grabs him, asking if he is truly unaware of his own innate abilities. He reveals that Linos possesses the rare and powerful ability of a barrier master. Falco explains he used appraisal magic at the market to discover this hidden talent. He elaborates on the Bartholomew family's urgent need for a barrier master to protect them. Falco dismisses Linos as a mere chick, still just an egg in terms of his potential. When asked if he can use magic, Falco evasively states that his appraisal ability is absolute. Linos listens intently, thinking to himself that Falco's claim seems far from a joke. Falco leads the way, announcing that they are now heading to the family mansion. He points out the massive Jenga castle, noting its agricultural self-sufficiency. A brief image shows people happily harvesting fruit within the castle's protective walls. Linos follows, contemplating the harsh treatment of slaves despite his own master's kindness. Falco turns to him, announcing that they have finally arrived at their destination. Linos stares in awe at the grand and impressive Bartholomew family estate. Falco directs him towards the back entrance, explaining it is the one used by servants. Linos follows, relieved to have finally reached the end of their long journey. He is suddenly zapped by an invisible force, crying out in pain and shock. Elsa's voice scolds Falco for carelessly leading him into the intruder-repelling barrier. Inside, the household staff, led by a stern, stout woman, inspects the newcomer. The head maid, Waraza, is introduced as Elsa explains Linos will be raised in the house. Waraza leans in close, noting he seems like a good kid and asking him to do his best. Her intense proximity and cheerful demeanor are comically terrifying to the small boy. Falco, lying on the ground, worries if Linos is all right after the rough handling. Waraza kindly asks Linos if he has had a chance to eat yet. She decides to take him to the dining hall for a meal while giving him a tour of the mansion. Falco pats his head encouragingly, telling him to eat well for their training tomorrow. Linos looks up with wide, innocent eyes, taking in his new surroundings. A warm, simple meal of fresh bread, eggs, and greens is presented to him. Waraza asks if there's anything he dislikes as he hesitantly holds a piece of bread. He wonders if it's truly acceptable for him, a slave, to be treated with such kindness. Waraza smiles knowingly, remarking that the Bartholomews are a cruel but strange family. She tells him he is the egg of a barrier master as she leads him up the grand staircase. At the dining table, Linos expresses doubt about finishing his large meal, but Waraza encourages him to eat well and grow strong. Waraza promises to show him to his room after he finishes, and he gratefully prepares to eat his meal. Leading him up a grand staircase, Waraza instructs Linos to memorize the mansion's layout, to which he dutifully agrees. During the tour, she explains the first floor has guest rooms, while the second floor holds Elsa-sama's room in his own. Linos is touched by her thoroughness, noting that his own room is located in the servant's wing. She kindly offers to let him share a room with her son Walsa, and Linos seems to agree to the arrangement. Suddenly, her son Walsa erupts in fury, declaring he won't share a room with a brat like him. After the outburst, Waraza shows Linos to his own private room, explaining it's a bit messy from disuse. Cheerfully suggesting they clean it together, she hands him a brush, and he gratefully offers to help. As they clean, she outlines his duties, which include assisting her and performing various tasks using his minor magic. His schedule will be demanding, she explains, with set meals and wake-up times, but he will have days off. With an encouraging smile, she adds that his magic training will be part of his duties, urging him to try his best. Alone in his new room, Linos feels overwhelmed by all that has happened, unsure of what to make of it. A sudden pang of anxiety hits him as he recalls the company project he left unfinished in his old life. The anxieties of his former world resurface, leaving him staring blankly into the quiet room. He grimaces, wondering if he is still just a corporate slave at his core, despite the new world. Gazing through the window, he questions if he can ever go back, and if returning would even bring him happiness. Overwhelmed by anxiety, he decides it's best to stop thinking and dives under his covers to sleep. The following day, his master Falco begins the training by instructing him to focus on creating an image. He is told to become aware of the blood flowing through his veins and to feel the heat within his body. As he concentrates, a shimmering barrier forms around him, and his eyes snap open in surprise at the manifestation. His eyes are wide with amazement as he questions the strange magical phenomenon occurring around him. He exclaims in wonder that a mottled barrier has appeared, but Falco sharply tells him to concentrate. A look of pure astonishment crosses his face as he realizes he has successfully used magic. His master Falco yells in frustration, reminding him again to maintain his focus. A barrier master, Falco explains, is a rare job that requires constantly protecting one's superiors. Giving a thumbs up, Falco declares that while important, it's a very plain and unglamorous profession. He stresses the need for immense mental strength and explains that rapid growth is an absolute necessity for battle. A grim vision of fallen comrades appears as Falco warns that a miscalculation in battle leads to death. The word death shocks Linos, and Falco acknowledges the boy is still young and this world is harsh. Suddenly laughing, Falco reassures him, declaring that the great mage Falco himself will personally teach him. Caught off guard by the sudden shift in tone, Linos enthusiastically agrees to the training. To the boy's shock, Falco immediately announces they will begin a defensive trial right away. Acknowledging a full sphere is too difficult, he instructs Linos to form a fan-shaped barrier in front of him. As Linos manifests the shield, Falco gives a nod of approval and tells him to maintain the form. Concentrating on the shield, Linos feels he is beginning to understand how to manage the magic. His eyes are focused and determined as he successfully maintains the translucent magical shield. With a wild grin, Falco unleashes a massive magical blast, challenging the boy to block his attack. A terrified smile on his face, Linos thinks to himself that blocking the attack is surely impossible. A huge explosion erupts in the snowy mountains, demonstrating the immense power of Falco's attack. That evening, walking back to the mansion, a panting Falco remarks that they somehow managed to survive the day. Linos, looking exhausted, mentions learning recovery magic, and Falco gruffly thanks him for his efforts. At the gate, Falco announces he's going to the tavern and tells Linos to go on ahead. Thinking he's hungry, his thoughts are cut short by someone screaming at him, calling him a piece of trash. A brutish young man, Walsa, viciously kicks him from behind, sending him sprawling onto the stone steps. Grabbing him by the collar, Walsa furiously reminds him of his order not to return until his chores were done. The terrified boy apologizes, but Walsa berates him for his insolence, reminding him of his slave status. Terrified and trembling, Linos stammers out another apology for his perceived mistake. As Walsa continues his cruel tirade, no one nearby makes any move to intervene. The other servants simply watch the brutal bullying, their inaction speaking volumes about the house's hierarchy. A chilling realization dawns on him. This cruel treatment is normal, and he might not have intervened either. The grand mansion stands silently under a cold, snowy sky, reflecting the boy's inner turmoil. As he walks through the halls, he feels a deep anxiety settling in, despite trying to reassure himself. He stands dejectedly in an empty corridor, the weight of his new reality pressing down on him. The head maid Waraza finds him, her face lighting up as she cheerfully greets him after his training. She passes on a message from Elsa-sama, summoning him to her room once he has finished his duties. Patting his head affectionately, she tells him dinner is almost ready and to finish his work in the dining hall. As she leaves, he touches his head where she patted him, a look of confused sorrow on his face. Later, Elsa presents him with a box, explaining that the formal suit inside is a gift for him. He stares at the fine clothes in disbelief, questioning if such a splendid suit is truly for him. Elsa and her husband smile warmly, encouraging the astonished boy to go ahead and try it on. With a kind and proud smile, Elsa tells the newly dressed Linos to accept the gift. She then makes a stunning declaration, telling him that he is now a member of their family. The words "a member of the family" hit him with immense force, leaving him utterly speechless. Overcome with emotion, he places a hand to his chest and thanks her profusely for the incredible kindness. Seated comfortably, she tells him the suit looks good on him, as he resolves to be useful to them. Down in the bustling kitchen, the maids gather around, exclaiming how well the new suit looks on him. A bit overwhelmed, he helps carry a large stack of plates for the upcoming dinner service. The kitchen is a hub of cheerful activity as the maids prepare the evening meal. A maid's gossip about a foreign prince startles him, nearly causing him to drop a large salad bowl. During dinner, he learns the master of the house is a trusted aide to the crown prince, a source of great pride. A maid explains to the newcomer that Elsa-sama had served as a tutor to the master, Olen. The maid further explains that Olen acts as the trusted right-hand man to the crown prince. Beaming with pride, one maid declares that the family's deep trust with the crown prince is their greatest honor. A stern-faced man sighs, admonishing the gossiping maids for their thoughtlessness. He points out two formidable men, General Kalgi and his brother, warning that it would be rude to be impolite. Overwhelmed, Linus realizes that as a bodyguard, he must be aware of these powerful individuals. The head maid, Waraza, listens to the exchange with a knowing and thoughtful expression. He asks about an important guest, and the maids cryptically mention that that person is arriving today. Waraza's expression shifts to one of shock as she seems to realize the guest has arrived. An armored boot steps into view as a maid reassures him that the head butler is handling the arrival. Linus looks on, his expression a mixture of confusion and anticipation for the important guest. As a long-haired blonde woman appears, he asks who that person is. The head butler formally welcomes the newcomer home, addressing her as Errol Ojusama. With a brilliant smile, Errol rushes in, joyfully announcing to her grandmother that she has returned. Elsa expresses her delight, and Errol explains she was so eager to see them that she flew back. Stunned, Linus wonders aloud if the young lady has already finished her sword training. A memory reveals a younger Errol being sent to train as a sword master after a painful divorce. Now confident, Errol declares that she will be the one to protect her grandmother from now on. She adds that with Falco also present, the family's defenses will become even more formidable. Elsa looks upon her granddaughter with an expression of concern, murmuring Errol's name softly. Her sharp gaze lands on Linus, and she mockingly questions if he's just some unemployed person Falco found. Linus is flustered by her sudden and aggressive line of questioning, unsure how to respond. She points a finger at him, identifying him as the boy that Falco has been training. Her eyes narrow as she states with conviction that magic alone is not enough to protect anyone in this era. She points directly at him, declaring that she, a sword master, will personally cooperate with his training. With a fierce grin, she vows to train him with the intent to kill, telling him to follow her lead. Overwhelmed by her intensity, tears well in his eyes as he chokes out a yes to her terrifying offer. After a training session, she expresses disappointment that he is only a tenth of her strength, and he thinks she's a monster. Falco watches as the exhausted Linus pleads for Errol to go easy on him, but she remains slightly disappointed. A beautiful woman with cat-like ears reacts in shock, realizing she is only at 1/10 of her opponent's strength. The rugged man Falco playfully suggests they add his magic to the fight, but she protests it would kill her. With a wide grin, he reminds her of her own boast about training with the intent to kill. A chaotic memory flashes, showing a terrified young Linus as Falco and Errol loom over him with manic energy. In the flashback, Linus clutches a book in fear while the imposing Falco watches him. The memory continues, showing the young boy laughing happily with two smiling maids. Another training memory reveals a younger Linus sparring fiercely with Errol. A sharp diagonal line transitions the scene forward in time. 4 years later, a poised Errol is thanked for her visit by the distinguished Balsam von Alden. A butler serves tea to the matriarch, who notes she must move in secret to meet him. Balsam then asks the matriarch for an update on the situation at the mansion. He chuckles, playfully chiding her for sounding as though she is gossiping. The matriarch smiles serenely, replying that she has a very reliable source of information. Outside the grand estate, Linus lets out a powerful ki, his training in full swing. From a high balcony, Lord Balsam and the matriarch observe the session below. Linus brings his large sword down, and Falco catches the heavy blade on his forearm. Errol lets out a fierce battle cry as she leaps into the training spar. She soars through the air, aiming a powerful, arcing kick directly at Linus. With incredible composure, Linus pivots and blocks her attack with the flat of his sword. Errol clicks her tongue in frustration, annoyed at being so easily thwarted. She lands gracefully, but complains that she was only just getting started. A gloved hand raises, and Falco's voice commands them to stop the spar. Falco keeds Errol for interrupting, stating it's difficult to train when she interferes. Linus, breathing steadily after the exchange, respectfully addresses Falco as his master. Falco acknowledges that Linus's magical power has grown considerably since his arrival. He looks at his student thoughtfully and announces it is time for his graduation exam. Linus is shocked, asking if he is truly ready to graduate already. Falco reassures him that his barrier magic is more than sufficient, even for the royal palace. He gives Linus his daunting task, to venture alone into Lunoa Forest and hunt a monster. A map shows the location of the vast Lunoa Forest, northeast of the Juka Kingdom. Falco gives Linus 3 days to prepare for his departure, and the boy agrees. Deep in the forest, Linus asks why Errol has accompanied him. She explains she is his bodyguard. Her eyes sparkle with battle lust as she declares her intention to hunt a big one. She eagerly urges a slightly bewildered Linus to get a move on. Walking ahead, she complains that she's getting antsy and wants to slash something soon. Linos notes that the forest is eerily quiet, with no creatures in sight. Errol suddenly realizes the silence is due to her own murderous aura scaring everything away. A dark, oppressive energy washes over the area, and Linos' eyes widen in terror. A monstrous cacciaroli bursts from the trees, and Linos cries out its name in panic. The massive beast charges forward, and the two adventurers brace themselves for the attack. Linus and Errol shout the monster's name in unison as they face the terrifying creature. Errol finds herself trapped in the beast's magic, realizing its hide is too thick to pierce. She grits her teeth, vowing not to be underestimated, and prepares to break free. She leaps into the air, bringing her sword down in a powerful, desperate strike. Her blade clangs harmlessly against the monster's magically protected hide. A close-up shows the futile impact of her attack against the beast's tough skin. She curses in frustration, realizing the creature is simply too tough for her attacks. After being thrown back, she urgently tells Linos to run, insisting he can't win. She grabs his cloak, physically trying to push him towards safety. Linos stands his ground, telling her not to worry about him. His expression resolute, he declares there is just one thing he wants to try. He raises his hands and a vast glowing magic circle envelops the fearsome beast. Errol asks if his plan is to simply immobilize the creature and run. Linus puts a finger to his lips, revealing his true plan: to remove the air inside the barrier. Errol is utterly shocked and speechless at his brilliant and unconventional strategy. The trapped monster realizes it is being defeated by a method other than sword or spell. The colossal creature begins to choke and wheeze, collapsing to the ground. Panting from the exertion, Linos kneels in relief, whispering that he did it. Errol approaches, smiling with genuine admiration, praising his incredible magical power. Linos looks up at her with a bright, beaming smile and offers his thanks. With the beast defeated, they now face the logistical problem of how to transport the massive carcass. Errol smirks confidently, a knowing chuckle escaping her lips as she has an idea. She presents a small ornate pouch, declaring that this is the solution. Linos looks at the small bag in her hand, asking what it is. She explains it's a magical storage bag, a family treasure capable of storing items based on the user's magic. Linos takes the bag, stunned but understanding, and agrees to take good care of the treasure. Errol instructs him to chant apt to activate the bag's magic. With a spectacular whoosh of energy, the giant monster is sucked into the tiny pouch. Errol confirms it's safely stored and tells him how to retrieve it later. She cheerfully suggests they eat the delicious cacciaroli meat, but Linos objects to eating the hide. She clarifies that they will peel the hide off first, and he makes a disgusted face. She then suggests they forage for ingredients on the way back to the estate. Linos watches her, a thoughtful and slightly surprised expression on his face. Errol excitedly points out delicious-looking mushrooms and other wild vegetables in the forest. Linos remarks that he never realized she was so interested in food. A memory shows a maid explaining that meals in the mansion are prepared for them. Errol explains that after years of Spartan training meals, she now finds immense joy in choosing what she eats. She enthusiastically proposes that their next special training should be another foraging trip. She's so excited she almost forgets they need to return to their waiting master. Upon their return, Falco stares in utter disbelief at the massive cacciaroli carcass. He asks if Errol helped, but she proudly explains Linos suffocated it with a barrier all on his own. Falco looks at his student, impressed by his cleverness, and Linos thanks him. With a proud smile, Falco pats Linos' head, declaring that he has passed the graduation exam. The matriarch and Lord Balsam greet them, congratulating them on their hard work and safe return. Linos and Errol formally announce their successful return to their master. Errol excitedly tells the matriarch the monster meat is delicious and should be prepared for dinner. She laughs with pure, unadulterated joy, while Linos looks on, still a bit overwhelmed by the praise. The matriarch's gaze softens as she addresses Linos directly by his name. Linos looks up at her, respectfully answering her call. She tells him she must thank him, but he insists he's done nothing to deserve it. The matriarch closes her eyes, a gentle, knowing smile gracing her lips. She explains that since he arrived, Errol has started to show truly wonderful, genuine smiles. She states that she is the one who should be thankful for all he has done for her granddaughter. A vision shows a younger, sadder Errol as the matriarch wishes for her to be happy from the bottom of her heart. A snowy mountain vista appears as the matriarch says that she and Linos are the same. She reassures him that he is now an indispensable person to their family and should speak up if troubled. Linos looks up, his eyes wide with surprise and a dawning sense of belonging. Lord Balsam expresses his hope that Linos will continue to lend them his aid in the future. Overcome with emotion, Linus clutches his heart and gives a heartfelt, affirmative reply. He reflects on how truly fortunate he is to be so cherished by these kind people. A distinguished, light-haired man expresses his sincere relief that a woman named Errol is well. In a wider view, he continues speaking with an elderly woman, admitting he feels guilty. His hand rests on his desk as he continues to express his deep regret. A flashback shows a distraught Errol weeping, forced into an abusive marriage by royal decree. The elderly woman recalls with sorrow how even the staff feared the young, changed Errol. Looking back, Errol's once bright face is now a mask of sadness and despair. The memory is so painful that the elderly woman covers her mouth in grief. A happier memory shows Errol and another man playfully training a flustered young Linus. Back in the present, the man asks about the young barrier master, Linus. The elderly woman confirms with a smile that Linus is exceptionally talented and capable. She reveals it was thanks to Linus that she could reassign the head butler, Waden. The man listens with interest, stroking his chin as he absorbs this new information. She recalls a party where Errol was uncomfortably refusing to mingle with the other nobles. The situation was tense, as her refusal could affect the family's reputation. Unused to the tense atmosphere, Errol was saved by a small accident Linus orchestrated. The man listens intently to the story, his expression thoughtful and serious. The flashback shows Linus being praised by Errol and the surrounding nobles for his quick thinking. The other nobles are impressed by Errol's calm handling of the situation, thanks to Linus. The man, surprised, asks if this old story of a clever ruse is true. The elderly woman chuckles, revealing with a sly smile that he was involved. He reacts with utter shock, his mouth agape at this unexpected revelation. A younger Linus admits to a grateful Errol that he was just following her teachings. The man bursts into hearty laughter, delighted by the boy's cleverness and ingenuity. Understanding Linus's worth, he states that they must properly thank the boy for his service. The elderly woman smiles, saying she will see them off and that everyone will be happy. He tells his attendant, Waden, to prepare, who bows in acknowledgement. The man leans back in his chair, a satisfied and thoughtful expression on his face. Gazing out the window, he reflects on Linus's promising future with their family. A long, thin panel transitions to the next scene. Against a mountain backdrop, a cheerful, armored Errol calls for Linus to go to the forest. Linus turns his head, a happy smile on his face as he agrees. Now 12 years old, Linus eagerly responds, ready for their adventure. Years later, Linus groans in his sleep, his hand outstretched as if in pain. He awakens to find Errol playfully holding him in a tight embrace in bed. She muses that she enjoys setting these little traps for him every morning. He protests that he isn't enjoying this pleasant situation at all. Errol wonders what people would think if they saw them, insisting she isn't bullying him. Now dressed, Linus is still flustered as a yawning Errol stretches behind him. A maid appears at the door, announcing that the master is summoning Linus. Errol yawns widely, telling Linus he should go right away. She tells Linus to enter the room where the master is waiting for him. The maid smiles, telling Errol she will take care of the other arrangements. As Linus enters, he is shocked to see a handsome blonde man with his entourage. A stern, bearded man recognizes the visitor, identifying him as the crown prince. Linus gasps in shock, his eyes wide as he realizes royalty is present. He bows deeply, apologizing for his informal attire, but the prince tells him not to worry. The prince notes that Linus is usually summoned at night, questioning his presence now. Linus looks up, stammering a response, still in awe of the prince. The prince announces his upcoming inauguration and requests Linus's assistance. Linus offers his sincere congratulations, bowing deeply before the prince. He wonders nervously what business the crown prince could possibly have with him. The prince gives his order. He wants Linus to capture 100 golden birds for the banquet. Linus repeats the name of the legendary golden birds, his expression serious. The birds are described as wary, fast, and incredibly difficult to capture. The elderly woman explains she called Linus here to showcase his brilliance to the prince. The prince notes that Linus has surely heard of the birds by name. One of the men expresses doubt, wondering if even a master craftsman could succeed. Another man suggests that with his magic, he could simply burn the whole forest. The prince looks at Linus, asking if he will be all right with the task. Errol suddenly leaps onto Linus's back, telling the prince to leave it to them. The prince laughs, amused by her bold and confident declaration. Errol presents a magical pouch from the Balsam family to keep the birds fresh. The elderly woman playfully tells the prince to address her as Elsa, his teacher. Linus feels the immense pressure, knowing he cannot refuse the request. The prince gives him a 2-week deadline, asking if he can accomplish the feat. Linus hesitates for a moment, the weight of the impossible task sinking in. He resolves to help the prince, vowing to dedicate his entire being to the mission. The prince praises him for being so dependable, while Linus thinks about his true age. Now in a forest, Linus looks around, beginning the daunting quest. He prepares his equipment, admitting he has no idea how to catch the birds. The elderly woman gives him a family heirloom, the God's Eye mirror, to aid him. She expresses her hope that the powerful artifact will be useful for this difficult task. With renewed determination, Linus sets off, his friend comically covering his ears behind him. Riding with Errol, he sighs, feeling flustered by her presence. She playfully asks him why he's making such a face, sitting atop her horse. He thinks to himself that having such a powerful ally should be a good thing. Errol, blushing slightly, wonders if he is planning to eat the golden birds. She asks if he has found the birds yet, and he says he has. He explains he is using detection magic, but the flock is extremely cautious. As dusk falls, he decides to set up one of his signature protective barriers. Kneeling by her horse, Errol vows to succeed for the sake of the matriarch. Linus by the fire agrees, vowing to succeed for the prince's sake. They rest by the fire, a magical aura swirling around Errol's sleeping form. Linus's eyes snap open, his detection magic suddenly flaring to life. He alerts a startled Errol that his magic has picked up the golden bird's presence. He exclaims excitedly that the flock is very close by. Errol tells him to go, and he agrees, ready to move out. They move through the woods, Errol surprised they found the birds on the first day. Linus urges caution as they approach, spotting the flock ahead. He peers through the God's Eye mirror, his eye widening in focus. He has spotted them, a large number of the birds perched high in a tree. They strategize, worried a wide-range barrier might ensnare other creatures. A single beautiful white bird with a feathered crest perches on a branch. One of the golden birds flies closer, drawn to something below. Errol worries about killing them, but Linus notes the scent of blood would alert the others. He formulates a plan to capture them without killing them or raising an alarm. To buy some time, he decides to throw out some bait. Errol asks what he threw, and he explains that it is fruit. A golden bird happily eats the fruit, its primary food source. Errol remarks on how delicious it looks as it eats, while Linus has an idea. With his quarry in sight, Linus resolves that he has no other choice. A majestic white bird is suddenly enveloped in a swirl of magical energy. He admits to himself that this is a spur-of-the-moment idea with an unknown outcome. His companion Errol asks if he plans to suffocate it like the Kesheroli. He explains his radical plan to alter the environment within the barrier to be comfortable. Linus reasons that if the bird is not frightened, it will not alert its companions. While Errol questions if it's possible, he focuses on adjusting the temperature and scent. The bird looks confused at first, making Errol worry that it seems to be suffering. Its expression then shifts to one of pure bliss as it lolls its tongue happily. Linus watches intently, his eyes widening as he realizes his strange plan is working. The majestic bird lies peacefully on the ground, lulled into a deep, magical slumber. Overjoyed by his success, Errol throws her arms around him in a tight, celebratory hug. He is startled by her sudden and enthusiastic embrace, his face a mask of surprise. She proudly explains that she used the first bird's cry to lure and entrance the others. They stand in awe before a forest clearing now carpeted with dozens of sleeping birds. As Linus prepares to bag their prize, Errol suddenly stops him with a sharp command. Her eyes wide with hunger, she insists they must conduct a crucial taste test first. Linus looks on, slightly taken aback by her intense and sudden demand for a meal. With practiced skill, she swiftly drains the bird's blood in a single, clean motion. She then quickly plucks its feathers, preparing the carcass for their impromptu feast. Next, she expertly guts the bird, her movements efficient and surprisingly ruthless. Linus observes her impressive butchering skills with a sense of quiet admiration. He asks her to heat up the frying pan he brought in his luggage. As the meat sizzles, she admits the aroma is already making her drool with anticipation. Two thick, glistening cuts of meat brown perfectly in the pan, looking incredibly delicious. Their mouths watering, they decide the meat is just about ready to eat. They both take a large, eager bite of the freshly cooked bird meat. Their eyes widen in unison, a look of pure, unadulterated shock and delight. After a moment of stunned silence, they both exclaim how unbelievably tasty it is. They rave about the incredible flavor, amazed it's so good with simple seasoning. Leaning back, completely satisfied, they bask in the afterglow of their amazing meal. Errol wistfully wishes her great aunt and the others could have tasted the magnificent bird. Linus smiles, reassuring her that they have plenty of leftovers to share with everyone. As they journey back through the mountains, she asks if he thinks the master will be pleased. He confidently replies that he is absolutely certain their master will be delighted. Upon their arrival, they are met by Warsa and other maids with joyous excitement. The entire household staff gathers around, warmly welcoming them in their successful hunt. Later, Linos, now dressed as a butler, formally brings tea to his master. He pours a cup for the matriarch of the house, whom he addresses as Falco. He reports on the successful procurement of the golden bird, and she thanks him. She informs him that the dinner party was a success and offers him a reward. He insists he is a mere slave, but she states that he has certainly earned it. She admits asking him to procure the substitute Falco was an unreasonable demand. Linos is taken aback by her words, stammering out his gratitude for her kindness. She presents him with a heavy cloth-wrapped bundle as compensation for his efforts. His eyes go wide with shock as he sees the bag is full of gold coins. A nobleman explains it is the master's command to give him all the funds. Linos protests that he cannot possibly accept such an immense sum of money. The attendant, Elsa, explains they intend to free him from slavery upon their deaths. Linos listens, stunned, as he learns of their long-held intentions for his future. The matriarch adds that she and the master are old and do not have long. She wants him to take it, remembering his past desire to escape and providing for him. Overcome with gratitude, he clutches the bag and thanks them profusely for their kindness. The matriarch asks if he will accept, and he quietly agrees, still overwhelmed. Errol arrives with the household staff, commenting on how kind everyone in the house is. Linos happily tells her he can't wait to boast about this to his master. She then asks if his master has returned yet, but he has not. A moment of quiet passes between them, Linos looking at her expectantly. A man with a massive dragon roars that they cannot return without a substitute item. Sometime later, Linos stands outside a grand building, reviewing a clipboard. The head maid, Warasa, spots him wandering at night and calls out his name. She cheerfully tells him to come with her, as there's somewhere he needs to be. To his shock, he finds himself at the center of a huge surprise party. He sits in an ornate throne-like chair, utterly bewildered by the celebration. He asks his companions what is happening, unable to comprehend the lavish scene. He wonders if such a massive party is a normal coming-of-age tradition here. Flustered, he asks if it's truly okay for them to celebrate him so grandly. He stares in disbelief at the magnificent feast spread out before him. Errol reveals that Warsa has been excitedly planning this surprise for months. An older bearded man remarks on how quickly he's grown into an adult. Linos listens with a slight blush, still processing the overwhelming attention. A woman fondly recalls how small and timid he used to be when he arrived. She remembers his shy and dependable nature when he was just a child. A close-up shows a small, adorable creature he used to be in her memory. With a gentle smile, Linos offers his handkerchief to the emotional Warasa. Overcome with joy, she bursts into tears at his kind and polite gesture. She is moved that he has grown into such a fine young man. The bearded man pats his head, again commenting on his impressive growth. The entire group looks on warmly, proud of the man he has become. Errol watches with a nostalgic smile, remembering his difficult training days. A calm voice cuts through the noise, asking if the boy is Linos. Linos turns to see the lord of the house, his granduncle, before him. He is so shocked that he almost drops the plate of food he's holding. The partygoers are equally stunned by the lord's unexpected appearance. Linos is flustered, unsure how to properly greet such an important figure. The lord mentions he has heard a great deal about Linos from Elsa and Errol. The two women smile, confirming the lord's words with their expressions. He apologizes for not visiting sooner, thanking Linos for protecting the house. With a warm smile, he offers his sincere congratulations on his coming of age. Struck by his kindness, Linos thinks he resembles Elsa and stammers his thanks. The lord asks if he has met the matriarch yet, but Linos has not. He excuses himself, encouraging everyone to relax and enjoy the celebration. Linos admits to Errol how surprised he was, and she agrees with a smile. He tells her he now understands why the lord is so beloved by everyone. Errol muses that he always sends letters, wondering if something has happened. She jokingly wonders if his sudden, terrible return was a surprise for her. The lord speaks with the matriarch, apologizing for his unannounced arrival. She asks if he is returning to the castle soon, and he says not yet. He explains he will be staying for 2 or 3 days, which she finds unusual. Her face fills with concern as she asks if something is happening at the castle. In a grand room, the lord explains the situation at the castle, but the matriarch finds the story unclear. At a festive party, a maid urgently calls for Linos, saying Elsa and Falco have summoned him. Led away by a retainer, Linos, Falco, and Errol apologize for keeping their host waiting. The Lord graciously insists that they were the ones interrupting the ongoing celebration. His expression turning serious, the Lord reveals he has called them for a secret mission. He requests that Errol and Falco act as official witnesses for the task he is about to give. Before the serious discussion begins, the matriarch Elsa presents Linos with a document. Linos is stunned to see that it is a travel permit, granting him access to all city districts. The Lord confirms Linos is now free to move about the city, much to the boy's delight. A diagram illustrates the city's layout, divided into noble, military, residential, commercial, and agricultural zones. Falco leans in with a mischievous grin, promising to take Linos to his favorite familiarization shop. Linos imagines a rowdy brothel filled with women, his face a mask of pure horror at the thought. Elsa, trying to stifle a laugh, quickly adds that a strict curfew will be enforced. The trio sweats nervously, accepting the terms of their newfound freedom with some trepidation. The Lord announces it is time to get down to business and discuss Linos' new job. With a grave expression, he officially appoints Linos as a member of the Barsam family. He bestows upon Linos the great responsibility of managing the family's magical treasury. Linos is shocked, realizing he must guard national treasures with his unique barrier arts. He stammers the name Plesia, asking if he is truly worthy of such an immense honor. The Lord and Elsa both express their complete confidence, believing he is the only one for the job. Humbled, Linos apologizes for his reaction and formally accepts the great responsibility. Elsa looks on with a warm, knowing smile, confident in their decision to trust him. She explains that the method for opening the vault is complex but reassures him he can do it. Falco watches the exchange with a sly, confident smirk, aware of Linos' true potential. The Lord thanks Linos for coming, stating that this concludes all of his business with him. Errol, however, senses there is more, asking her great-uncle if that is truly all he has to say. Linos is confused by her question, as the Lord's words seem quite final to him. The Lord then reveals the true reason for his return. A very important visitor is arriving tomorrow. Falco's expression hardens as he realizes the visitor must be someone of extremely high status. Errol's face pales with dread, knowing they cannot refuse the request of the person who is coming. Linos wonders who this important person, coming specifically to celebrate with him, could be. A view of the grand estate at night sets a tone of quiet anticipation for the arrival. A handsome blonde man arrives, thanking Linos for his help during his recent inauguration. Linos and his companions are prostrated on the floor, the young man feeling the immense pressure. The visitor declares that Linos is a benefactor to him, making this level of attention only natural. He confirms that he knows Linos has been made guardian of the house's treasury. Linos, still on his knees, confirms that he has also received the travel permit. The Lord and Elsa express their gratitude for the great favor the visitor is showing them. The visitor assures Linos that his barrier magic skills have his personal, official seal of approval. Stunned by the great honor, Linos manages to express his profound thanks. Falco and Errol look on, relieved that the powerful visitor holds Linos in such high regard. The Lord wonders if his own celebratory gift now seems meager in comparison. Elsa quickly reassures him that there is no way his gift could be considered meager. The visitor's armored boot steps forward, signaling that the conversation is not yet over. He reveals that he has come today with another request for the Barsam house. He demands that Linos be released from his servitude and formally adopted into the family. Linos and his companions are utterly stunned, looking up at the visitor in disbelief. Though he had heard of Linos' excellence, the idea of releasing him from slavery is shocking. The visitor explains he wants to use Linos' high potential for the good of the country. He intends for Linos to serve directly under him as a royal court barrier mage. Linos is aghast at the forceful and audacious nature of the demand. Falco respectfully asks for time to discuss the matter with Linos and his wife. Linos is completely overwhelmed, his mind a chaotic mess from the whirlwind of events. The visitor grants their request for time, stating he expects a favorable response before he departs. In a dark, quiet corridor, a servant quietly confirms his presence to an unseen figure. The servant reports that His Highness has returned from his journey. He continues his report on the situation regarding the barrier mage. The nobleman muses that Linos will now become the manager of the Barsam family treasury. With a chilling finality, he declares that the time to erase them will be then. 2 years later, Linos reflects on being asked to become a royal court barrier mage. He admits he never imagined the preparations would be a years-long process. Elsa smiles, explaining that the royal court has many complex etiquettes and manners to learn. She tells Linos that this is a matter of the utmost importance for his future. Linos asks if his current situation is also part of these important preparations. Elsa declares that in the royal court, one's appearance is everything. She tells him not to worry about his actual skills as a barrier mage, as they are not the priority. To survive, he must first gain the trust of the various political factions. The immense pressure of this revelation gives Linos a terrible stomachache. Elsa asks him how he thinks the court judges those they do not yet trust. He guesses it is by their family crest, which she confirms is part of it. She adds that they are also judged by their wealth, based on the clothes they wear. If he is not trusted, his work will be obstructed and he will be isolated. Elsa earnestly grabs him, telling him she doesn't want that to happen to him as family. She explains the fine clothes he wears are a necessary tool for building that trust. She tells him to be proud of the name His Highness revived for him, Dark Lenos. With a warm, encouraging smile, she says she is praying for his well-being. Humbled and resolute, Lenos accepts her guidance with a firm and heartfelt yes. The serious mood is broken by Errol, who cheerfully asks to borrow Lenos for an outing. Elsa gives her blessing, telling her to be sure to take care of the packages. Errol excitedly announces that they are heading to the commercial district to carry their things. They walk through the vibrant market, and Errol remarks on all the new and rare items for sale. She asks him what he came to buy, but denies his suggestions of food or clothes. She knows that since going to the palace, he has rarely been able to return home. She declares that this outing is a pre-celebration, and she will buy him a present. She tells him to ask for anything he wants, as he rarely gets this opportunity. He explains that before he came, he already had almost everything he could ever want. A flashback shows his comfortable life: warm food, clean clothes, and welcoming people. He admits with a smile that he is so blessed, he sometimes forgets he is a slave. His indecisiveness angers Errol, who demands to know what she should get for him. Startled, Linos' eyes suddenly land on a particular item at a nearby stall. A smiling shopkeeper shows him a sack of small, reddish-brown beans. He eagerly approaches the stall as the shopkeeper welcomes him warmly. He asks what the red beans are, and the shopkeeper tells him they are called azuki. She explains they are delicious when boiled sweet, sparking a fond memory for Linos. The shopkeeper is impressed that he knows how the sweet paste is prepared. She suggests trying it with butter and cream, an idea that greatly excites Errol. Errol declares with delight that this is it. This will be his celebratory gift. She turns to him with a bright, happy smile, asking what's wrong with him. She laments that their errand is over, but suggests they go look for other necessities. She then asks when he is leaving, and he confirms his departure is in 2 months. In a quiet moment, a voice notes how quickly time has passed as a hand closes a small bottle. Linos smiles warmly, admitting that he was a little surprised by the recent turn of events. He wonders aloud if being formally adopted into the Barsom family will change his status relative to Errol. With a mischievous grin, Errol dares him to try calling her by her first name as a test. Linos is completely flustered by her audacious suggestion, letting out a yelp of pure shock. He stammers, protesting that he could never be so rude as to call a noble lady by her given name. She dismisses his concerns, telling him it's fine and that he should start practicing right away. He observes that their outing has somehow turned into a shopping trip for her, but she says it's fine. Errol emerges from behind a curtain in a beautiful, frilly white dress, asking Linos for his opinion. He tells her that the dress looks very good on her. She and another woman model more outfits, a winter coat and a sleek black dress, asking for his thoughts. Linos smiles warmly, telling her she looks beautiful in everything she wears. She playfully teases him for his cheeky words upon seeing his embarrassed reaction. With a sly look, she warns him that with an attitude like that, he'll never find a girlfriend. Her teasing strikes a chord, and he is left sweating and flustered. As they walk through the market, he laments that he couldn't buy her any of the clothes they saw. She admits that while all the items were cute, nothing truly resonated with her. He asks if her standards are simply too high, and she confirms that few things are worthy of her. He watches her, a thoughtful and slightly troubled expression crossing his face. She turns to him, offering the small bag of azuki beans as a gift, hoping he will accept it. He asks if the item he found is a ribbon, explaining he spotted it while she was trying on clothes. He gently ties the black lace ribbon into her hair, hoping that she will like it. Errol beams with pure joy, exclaiming that she loves the ribbon and thanking him profusely. Overwhelmed by her happiness, he stammers out a thank you in return. She laughs, asking why he is the one thanking her, but he can only say it's for no reason. A deafening boom suddenly rips through the quiet street, shaking the very ground. Amidst the chaos, they and the surrounding crowd wonder if the terrifying noise was an explosion. Linus looks up in alarm, his eyes wide with shock. He yells out to Errol, pointing frantically towards the sky. A massive swarm of wyverns darkens the sky, flying in a terrifying formation. Errol watches them, a dreadful realization dawning on her as she notes the direction they are headed. Elsewhere, two men see that the attack is aimed directly at the royal palace. The advisor urgently states that they must hurry, as His Highness the Emperor is in danger. Linus runs through the streets, realizing with despair that the palace is too far away to reach in time. Amidst the panicked crowd, a lone armored figure stands out, calmly observing the chaos. As the terrified citizens flee, the figure walks slowly and deliberately against the tide. Linus notices with growing dread that the unmoving figure is smiling. The man turns, his smile unnerving as he correctly identifies Lord Linus in Lady Errol. He states that the royal palace has been occupied by their forces and that the two of them have been summoned. He introduces himself with a flourish as Duke Adwison, a staff officer of the Yucca Kingdom's army. Errol, horrified, asks if he is the one who instigated a rebellion alongside General Kalgi. Duke scoffs at the word rebellion, a dismissive and condescending smirk on his face. He frames their actions as a noble endeavor, a necessary move to set the kingdom on a righteous path. He states plainly that he did not come to the city merely to chat with them. Duke announces that he has received a strict order to escort Lord Linus to the palace. Linus is startled by the direct order, questioning what Duke means by this. Errol is equally shocked, wondering why they were specifically called for. Duke's smile turns predatory as he reveals he has not received any orders to let Errol live. The two are frozen in a moment of utter disbelief and dawning horror. Linus finds the man's insolent words and smug, unshakable smile utterly revolting. He clenches his fist, fighting back a tremor of fear and telling himself not to be intimidated. He declares firmly that as a slave, his duty is to protect his mistress as he was ordered. He states that Duke must surely understand that he cannot obey any order other than his master's. Duke simply replies, "Indeed," with a knowing and confident look. He taunts them, noting that the master they are supposed to escort is waiting for them at the palace. He asks if, as a slave, Linus shouldn't return to his master's side, shocking both of them. Linus demands that Duke show them proof that their master is at the palace. Duke agrees with a chillingly pleasant smile, saying, "Very well." With a sickening thud, a body is thrown onto the stone ground before them. Linus stares in utter shock and horror at the fallen figure. The accompanying blonde knight's expression is grim and completely unreadable. Duke identifies the body as the great sorcerer Falco, who had been protecting the master. A scream of pure rage escapes Errol as she lunges at the impassive blonde knight. Duke watches the ensuing clash with a detached, knowing smirk. Errol's face is a mask of desperate fury as she continues her attack. She screams at the knight not to dodge her frantic assault. She furiously orders the bastard to draw his sword and fight her. The knight coolly evades her, remarking that her movements are wasteful and driven by emotion. Linus cries out her name in alarm as the knight dismisses her as a mere loudmouth brat. Duke notes with smug satisfaction that a barrier has been erected. He looks down at the defeated Errol, saying he's disappointed in her supposed swordsmanship. The knight presses his blade to her throat as her own sword clatters uselessly to the ground. Duke addresses them both with utter contempt. His sharp eye observes their complete defeat. He mockingly asks if they really have time to be playing around in such a place. Errol shouts defiantly that her mother is still being protected by Linus's barrier. Linus stands firm, his expression resolute as he supports her claim. Duke's face twists into a terrifying grin as he sneers that he will have him die. Linus realizes with dread that even a strong barrier is useless if the target is forced not to defend. His eye widens as the horrifying conclusion dawns on him. He looks at the body of the slain sorcerer, Falco, lying on the ground. He turns to Errol, telling her they must do as Duke says, much to her shock. He explains that their priority right now is to confirm the safety of her and her mother. Errol quietly accepts his grim logic, her shoulders slumping in defeat. Duke announces that he will prepare a carriage to transport them. Linus interjects, stating that he has just one request to make. His gaze is steady and determined as he faces the man. He asks to be allowed to meet with his master and the general. Duke agrees with a smooth smile, promising that he will arrange it. In the carriage, Errol covers her face, trying to stifle her heartbroken sobs. They sit opposite each other in the dark, opulent carriage as it lurches into motion. Linus wonders why his barrier didn't react to the mansion invasion, suspecting an insider was involved. He dismisses the thought, instead questioning why he is receiving better treatment than Errol. He notices that her body is trembling uncontrollably. Her hand resting on the seat beside her is shaking. He gently covers her hand, promising to save her and her master in exchange for his own life. Errol looks up at him, tears streaming down her face as she whispers his name in gratitude. He apologizes for startling her, telling her he'll be right back and that he is okay. He peers out the carriage window, his expression grim as he watches the scenery pass. As they approach the palace, he sees the number of soldiers lining the streets is increasing. Two grim-faced guards, their armor splattered with blood, sense the growing stench of blood in the air. A young man with dark hair, Linos, looks on, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and apprehension. His gaze snaps upwards, his body tensing as he spots something alarming in the distance. The massive main gate of the castle looms, a crowd of soldiers milling below its stone archway. Inside a carriage, someone wonders if the refugees are now seeking help at the royal palace. A blonde woman urgently calls Linos' name, pointing frantically towards the castle roof. On the castle parapets, a swarm of wyverns is perched like monstrous gargoyles. The blonde woman asks in horror what is happening, as Linos questions if the wyverns are attacking the palace. An older man with a mustache calmly instructs both Linos and the woman to exit the carriage. The carriage door is wrenched open, revealing Linos and his companion inside, completely shocked. On the battlements, a massive wyvern stands before a crowd of soldiers in a caped figure. Below, civilian onlookers stare up in silent awe and terror at the spectacle. The woman asks Linos if the army is losing, while he wonders if there is anyone on the gate. Linos' expression is one of grim focus as he scans the chaotic scene for answers. His eyes lock onto a lone caped figure standing defiantly on the castle wall. The figure turns, revealing a man with stark white hair and a cold, determined expression. Linos and the woman recognize him with shock and betrayal, uttering the name of Marshal Kalgi. Kalgi looks down upon the crowd below, his expression unreadable and silent. He roars to the crowd, identifying himself as the former marshal of the Yucca kingdom, Shiga Kalgi. As Linos and the woman watch in horror, Kalgi declares the nation has rotted and must be destroyed. Listening civilians are terrified as he vows to build a new, truly strong nation from the ashes. The mustached man smirks, noting that to achieve this, the old blood must be purged. Kalgi bellows that this purge must be paid for in blood, a cleansing of the old ways. His soldiers roar in zealous agreement, proclaiming this the first step towards a mighty nation. He gestures dramatically toward the center of the battlement, drawing everyone's attention. Linos and the woman stare in horrified fascination, wondering what is about to happen. A morbidly obese nobleman is dragged forward, screaming for someone to kill the rebel Kalgi. The prisoner frantically changes his plea, ordering anyone to strike down the rebel dogs. Kalgi looks down at the terrified nobleman with an expression of pure, merciless contempt. With a sharp, cold expression, he gives the chilling one-word command to proceed. A soldier shoves the chained man, who lets out a strangled cry as he is pushed off the wall. The man's body tumbles through the air, his terrified screams echoing silently. A close-up shows his eye, wide with terror, just before the moment of fatal impact. The castle battlements explode in a cloud of dust and shattered stone. A man with long, pale hair laughs maniacally, declaring Kalgi's reign is over. Kalgi's expression hardens into a grim mask as he processes this sudden betrayal. From the wall, a soldier reaches out a hand, screaming in pure terror. The soldier's eye is wide with fear as he witnesses the unfolding horror. Linos realizes with dawning dread that the attacker intends to annihilate the royal family. With a sadistic grin, the pale-haired man shrieks a command to his monstrous wyverns. A wyvern's massive fanged maw lunges towards a terrified screaming soldier. A beast snatches a woman and her child from the panicked crowd below. Another wyvern brutally bites a soldier clean in half in a spray of gore. The woman and child are dropped from a great height, their screams cut short. Errol lets out a piercing shriek of pure terror at the horrifying sight. Desperate, Linos begins to channel his magic, trying to form a protective barrier. His eyes are wide with shock as his attempt is suddenly interrupted. The mustached man whitens smirks, telling Linos to refrain from his pointless meddling. Errol cries out Linos' name, pointing in alarm towards the main castle gate. A group of prisoners is herded through the gate by Kalgi's soldiers. Linos stares in horror, recognizing his master Falco among the captured. Errol sobs, her hands covering her face as she cries out for her family. Falco tells Linos not to bother with a barrier for his mangled arm. His arm is shown, grievously wounded and seeping a dark, viscous fluid. Linos curses himself for his foolishness, for believing his master was safe. With a cold expression, Linos informs Kalgi his powerful arm is now within reach. He tells Kalgi to take his arm, an offering of service. With a menacing gaze, Linos vows to serve him from this day forward. He agrees to serve, but demands the release of his master and the hostages. Calgi scoffs at the boy, shouting that the prisoner's fate is already sealed. Falco and the others are shown under guard, their execution a settled matter. Holding a terrified Errol, Linos screams that Calgi must obey his command or die. Errol whispers to Linos, urging him to do whatever it takes to save her uncle. Calgi halts them, stating he has one question before he gives his answer. He demands to know the secret method to open the Balsam family treasury. Linos is utterly stunned, unable to believe Calgi knows of such a secret. On the castle battlements, the rebel commander Calgi demands to be told everything that is known. Linos, realizing there's a traitor, insists on buying time by treating his master's wounds first. He declares with fierce loyalty that if his master dies, he will not speak a word. A faint, knowing smile crosses Calgi's face as he acknowledges that Linos understands his position. Turning away, the commander walks off, calling for a man named Shen to carry out his order. A man with a neat mustache appears, bowing with a pleasant smile and confirming he will obey. Linos and his female companion stare in absolute shock, recognizing the traitor as Waiton. The scene flashes back to the past, where a young boy's voice calls out for his uncle. A much younger, beaming Calgi is introduced by name, his expression full of innocent joy. His grandfather, a decorated general, listens attentively as the boy asks to hear more stories. The general pulls his grandson into a tight hug, boasting of his many victorious battles. The adoring child vows to become a soldier, just like his grandfather, and build an unbeatable nation. His grandfather smiles with pride, telling the boy he is counting on him to do so. The old general beams, proudly declaring that the boy is indeed his grandson. In a quiet moment, the general advises the child that as a soldier, he must never lose. Years later, a confident teenage Calgi is praised at the academy for living a strong life. His instructors note that the academy produces excellent soldiers and that he is exceptionally so. They continue their praise, observing that he is even better at mentoring others than they are. One instructor muses that Calgi's future is something he looks forward to seeing. His attention then shifts to another student, whom he identifies as Alman Fawn of the Balsam family. The instructor remarks that Alman also lives up to the prestige of his family name. Alman is described as another excellent student who does not bring shame to his house. The instructor speculates that Calgi will be the military leader, while Alman will be the civil one. A confident Calgi suggests that one day, they may become the two wings supporting the royal family. Alman quietly reflects on the possibility of them becoming the kingdom's two supporting wings. The scene returns to the present, showing a military camp under the cover of night. A soldier presents a large mottled wyvern egg to Commander Calgi, fulfilling his order. Inside his tent, Calgi examines the egg, confirming with his subordinate that it has been done. A scarred man named Shen smiles, saying it is an honor to be entrusted with this task. Shen continues to look on with a respectful, almost fearful expression. He asks Commander Calgi what he intends to do with the monstrous egg. Calgi reveals he is experimenting with a way to make the monster submit to his will. The scarred man looks on silently, his expression unreadable as Calgi holds the key to his ambition. A soldier cautions his commander that the high command and royal family would forbid their plan. Marshal Calgi, his face grim, states that the royal family and surrounding nobles are corrupt. A brief, disdainful vision shows a decadent nobleman with two sad girls, illustrating this rot. Clenching his fist, Calgi passionately declares that the royal army is the country's true support. His subordinate, Waiton, smugly asks the soldiers if they agree Calgi holds all the power. The soldiers look nervous, with one reluctantly admitting that it is indeed true. Waiton's gloved hand rests on a table as he insidiously questions a political pardon for Balsam. Frustration etches Calgi's face as he realizes he cannot ignore the heater country situation. A solid black panel creates a stark transition to a new scene in time. In a tense council meeting, a stern-faced Marquis voices his strong objection to the invasion. Enraged, Calgi argues that now is the perfect opportunity to attack and expand their territory. The Marquis counters, questioning how they would garrison new lands, stating their nation has limits. Calgi dismisses the concern, coldly suggesting they simply take what they need from nearby towns. With a fist on the table, the Marquis insists strengthening the nation from within is the priority. Calgi leaps to his feet, shouting that his way is the only way, but is cut off. Waiton publicly supports the Marquis' opinion, to the shock of another council member. Calgi's face is a mask of suppressed fury as the military buildup is officially postponed. A council member observes from afar, noting Kalgi's long-standing animosity towards the Marquis. He wonders what Kalgi is truly planning, suspecting his rumored use of demonic forces. Kalgi seethes with rage, his expression twisting as he spits the word cowards. He storms down a long hall, determined to follow his own path to ruin. A striking visual splits his face, contrasting his hardened present with his more idealistic past. The other half of his face reveals the determined, radical man he has now become. At a gathering, Waiton greets a young woman, remarking they haven't met since her ceremony. Linos, clearly annoyed, tells him not to use the overly formal title, Oju-sama. He ignores her, smoothly introducing himself as Shen Waiton, a lieutenant colonel in military intelligence. Marshal Kalgi appears, impatiently demanding the barrier's password from the mage, Shen. Shen looks up, his expression tense and serious as he is put on the spot. Waiton smoothly intervenes, telling Shen to leave the matter to him and taking control. He produces a glowing magical artifact, ordering Linos to get out of the way. A magical seal flares to life on Shen's chest, causing him to cry out in agony. Linos shouts his name in alarm, desperately asking what is happening to him. Waiton smirks, mockingly observing that Shen seems completely unaware of his situation. He reveals the horrifying truth. He has now become the administrator of Shen's slave contract. A woman's back is stained with blood, revealing Falco's arm has been severed. With pure rage, the blonde woman, Linos, grits her teeth and accuses her adversary. A smug man, Wylan, grabs her from behind, condescendingly telling her to act her age. The dark-haired man, Shen, clutches his chest, confused how his barrier was breached. Wylan reveals Shen's failure was due to him wearing a forbidden, anti-appraisal magical item. He continues, explaining an unexpected consequence was the excruciating pain Shen felt passing through his own barrier. Patronizingly, Wylan notes the pain was great for Shen, but would have been unbearable for anyone else. He cruelly concludes that Shen's own naivety is the cause of this entire disastrous situation. Crushed by the revelation, Shen collapses, whispering that it is his fault his plans were useless. Linos, her face filled with sorrow, asks about her family, fearing their execution. The blonde commander coldly states his method for getting the password was to find their location. He describes setting a fire to smoke them out and force them to reveal themselves. A flashback shows the matriarch's burned clothes, which the commander says revealed her location. Since she wouldn't talk, the Duke and Marquis were subjected to the same brutal torture. The commander callously reveals that this is how they finally learned the family's whereabouts. Tears streaming down her face, Linos begs Shen to let her go and save her mother. Shen, filled with his own anguish, insists that she stay back and let him handle it. The commander looks on, his expression unyielding and impassive. Having heard their desperate pleas, his patience gone, he declares that the time for begging for their lives is over. As the butler pressures Shen, Linos shouts for him to only think of his own safety. The commander gives the firm command for the password to be revealed immediately. Shen, gritting his teeth through the pain, defiantly declares that he does not know. Wylan sneers at his stubbornness, remarking that he is just like his master. He forces the slave contract artifact closer, demanding the password as Shen screams in agony. Through the pain, Shen recalls his kind mistress never once used this terrible power on him. Drawing strength from her memory, he cries out his defiance one last time before collapsing. The commander roars in fury, questioning how long they will continue to defy him. Images of the defiant council and his tortured victims flash through his enraged mind. The faces of the commander and his subordinate are masks of pure, unrestrained anger. Having reached his limit, the commander coldly orders his men to kill everyone in the room. Wylan commands Shen to release the barrier as a dark vortex of magic hurtles forward. Linos screams in absolute terror, desperately shouting for them to stop the fatal attack. With a final, cruel smile, the commander gives the chilling order to kill. A man with blonde hair, Falco, screams in agony as black corruption bursts from his chest. Witnessing this, a young man and woman stare in utter horror and disbelief. Falco's lifeless head lies on the ground, surrounded by a pool of the dark substance. The young man stares at a glowing magic circle on his hands, questioning his purpose. He laments that with just this one magic, he was unable to save everyone. Though he desperately wants to treat their wounds, his body refuses to move. Suddenly, he lurches forward involuntarily, shocked by what is happening to his body. With a gasp, he realizes the slave contract seal on him is shattering. A close-up of his eye reveals a dawning awareness and profound shock. A hand now free is shown covered in the same black substance. A memory surfaces of a bloodied Falco apologizing to His Highness for acting alone. With his last breath, Falco collapses, his wish to give a gift unfulfilled. The young man, the prince, looks on, his eyes wide with horror. Falco's body is consumed by the strange black substance as his life finally ends. The prince screams, a vision of his terrified aunt and uncle flashing in his mind. His aunt screams his uncle's name, crying out for her father. Her eye reflects the horror as she screams out Falco's name in terror. A monstrous wyvern is commanded to eat everything on the ground without leaving a trace. The prince screams for the carnage to stop as the wyvern descends. A young woman, her face splattered with blood, stares in terror as tears stream down her face. A stern man in dark armor holds the prince back, ordering him to be quiet. The man holds the struggling prince by his long hair, telling him to behave. The prince thrashes, screaming in absolute despair as he is restrained. He cries out for his lady as the wyvern looms over her. The lady, now a fierce knight, leaps into battle against the massive beast. She soars through the air, her blade aimed directly at the wyvern's neck. Her face is a mask of furious grief as she demands the return of her people. A blur of motion shows her powerful attack connecting with the beast's hide. Her blade strikes true, sinking into the wyvern's neck and spraying dark blood. The prince realizes too late that her attack was dodged or simply ineffective. The knight hangs suspended in the air, her momentum spent, vulnerable before the beast. The colossal head of the wyvern turns slowly, its gaze locking onto her. She is slammed into the ground, her body erupting in a splash of black corruption. A young man's face is frozen in a silent gasp of pure shock and disbelief. With tears streaming down her face, Errol coughs up black blood, whispering Linos' name in her final moments. The massive reptilian head of the wyvern pulls back, its bloody work complete. Linos stares in wide-eyed horror, his mind struggling to process the devastating scene before him. The sight of the monstrous beast, stained with blood, confirms his worst fears have become reality. A cruel, blonde-haired man smirks, callously ordering his wyvern to devour Linos next. The colossal wyvern, its eyes glowing with malevolence, looms over the small, lone figure of Linos. A tattered piece of Errol's frilly dress falls from the beast's maw, a final, brutal memento. His mind flashes to a precious memory of Errol, alive and smiling with pure, radiant joy. The beautiful memory shatters and Linos unleashes a primal scream of pure, undiluted rage. Slamming his hand to the ground, he vows with burning hatred that he will never forgive them. A wave of immense power erupts from his touch, shattering the very earth beneath him. He promises to make them regret being alive in his presence as the ground explodes outward. Watching from a distance, one of the commanders wonders if the beast intends to destroy the castle. His subordinate mockingly questions why Linos, a supposedly good person, is smiling with such malice. Surrounded by black orbs of power, Linos declares that he has no choice but to kill them. The magical orbs swarm the massive wyvern, clinging to its body in a terrifying assault. The villains realize with alarm that his attack is not just for show and is aimed at them. With cold, burning eyes, Linos informs the blonde villain that he is the next target. The wyvern's body begins to rupture violently, exploding from within the magical barrier. Linos explains his gruesome technique, superheating the barrier to cause a catastrophic steam explosion. He taunts the writhing beast, asking with chilling calm if the pain of crumbling from within is terrible. In a final gory eruption, the massive wyvern collapses into a steaming, mangled heap. Linos presses his foot down on the ruined earth, his expression grim and unforgiving. He declares that the pain the monster felt was not nearly enough to atone for its actions. The beast's body is shown dissolving into a bloody, unrecognizable mess on the ground. Its single reptilian eye stares blankly in its final, horrific moment of existence. He asks his enemies if they are scared, questioning if his loved one's terror was any less. Extending his hand, he utters a single final command for the creature to die. The remnants of the wyvern explode in a final, concussive blast of dark energy. The remaining commanders watch, one asking the other if he should intervene in the battle. The lead commander, Kalgi, clicks his tongue in annoyance, deciding to handle the matter himself. His expression hardens with grim determination as he prepares to face the new threat. Standing on the ruined battlements, he sneers at Linos' talk of building a true strong country. Linos points at them, declaring that such a thing is already broken and he will kill them now. He turns his back, stating they must be destroyed for murdering the people he held dear. A massive torrent of dark, swirling energy erupts from Linos' body, full of raw power. He unleashes a final scream of rage, decrying them for what they did to his family. Waiton and his subordinate stare in shock, wondering what kind of barrier magic this is. The subordinate realizes with dawning horror that this barrier magic is covering the royal palace. A calm voice tells Linos to stop, explaining the command compelling him no longer works. Linos hangs his head, revealing that his master had released him from his servitude at the end. Waiton senses a strange power, as if the rubble itself is being drawn towards something. A dark, shadowy hand presses against a stone block, absorbing its very essence. Recognizing the imminent danger, Waiton barks an order to his subordinate, Witten, to retreat. A foot steps forward through the debris, ignoring the command to pull back. The former marshal, Calgi, lunges forward, his cape billowing amidst the destruction. Waiton recognizes him with horror, crying out the former marshal's title in disbelief. He lets out a silent, desperate scream as events spiral violently out of his control. A cataclysmic explosion of pure white light engulfs the entire scene in an instant. From a distance, a massive crystalline structure is seen erupting from the castle grounds. In the castle town, a citizen cries out in confusion and fear for his home. A burly man frantically checks on his family amidst the panicked and confused crowd. From a hill outside the capital, a couple stares in stunned disbelief at the horizon. The man notes that the entire castle has vanished, wondering what happened in the capital. He collapses to his knees, overwhelmed by helplessness at the incomprehensible event. Linos sits alone, a tiny, solitary figure in a vast, empty expanse of shattered earth. With a trembling hand, he reaches out to touch the colossal, dark crystalline wall. An image of a single closed eye within the crystal flashes through his mind. He presses his hand against the cold, unyielding surface of the monstrous structure. He stands as a lone mourner before the impossibly large crystalline tomb. His expression is one of profound sorrow and grim determination in the desolate landscape. Kneeling before the crystal, he resolves that he cannot leave it in this state. He knows his loved ones, the mistress, master, and prince, are trapped within its mass. A memory of them, smiling and happy, floods his mind with unbearable grief. A raw scream of anguish tears from his throat, declaring he cannot leave them this way. He begs for their forgiveness for his failure to protect them from this terrible fate. He wonders how much magical power he has left for the immense task ahead. He resolves to conceal their grotesque tomb so no one can see or touch them. Spreading his arms wide, he unleashes a swirl of magical energy to begin his spell. Suddenly he pauses, his eyes wide with a sudden, inexplicable sense of unease. He feels he must leave this place before the people from the castle town arrive. The smiling faces of his found family, Warasa and the others, flash through his mind. He recalls hearing that the people of the house were taken away by the military. A flicker of hope or possibility crosses his mind as he begins to walk away. A sudden shiver of premonition runs down his spine, confirming that something is wrong. He resolves that he must go and see for himself to know the truth of the matter. He approaches the familiar gates of the estate, breathing heavily with anticipation. He gazes at the distant city wall, the night sky filled with dust and debris. He recalls that just a few hours ago, the scene was so different and peaceful. A memory of the young mistress laughing beside him fills his thoughts with a sharp pain. He remembers the path he walked when he first arrived in this strange world. He recalls following his master, looking up at the castle, full of uncertainty and fear. The contrast between the warm past and the cold present weighs heavily on his heart. He clenches his jaw, his steps firm as he approaches the damaged estate. His resolve is set, determined to face whatever truth lies within the walls. The grand mansion stands before him, partially damaged but still eerily intact. The gates of his former home are broken, but still standing against a snowy backdrop. He steps inside and his fragile composure shatters as he realizes it's all gone. He runs through the empty courtyard, desperately calling out for Warasa and the others. His voice cracks as he screams into the ruined halls, asking if anyone is there. He falls to his knees, attempting to cast a detection spell with his remaining energy. The faint blue light of the spell radiates outwards, finding only emptiness and silence. He pleads for anyone, just one person, to be left in the desolate rooms. Collapsing in despair, his cries for anyone fade into a defeated, heartbroken sob. He forces himself to stand, a faint sound catching his attention and startling him. He looks down a long, arched corridor, his senses on high alert for any movement. He wonders if the sound is just the wind or an animal moving through the ruins. He notices a set of footprints on the dusty floor, a clue in the silence. He realizes with a jolt that there are no signs of a struggle, only tracks leading away. He understands that those who weren't killed in the blast simply fled. His mind wanders to a memory of the headmaid Waraza, cheerfully explaining the layout. He clenches his teeth in anguish, thinking that it is his fault and he is sorry. Two other maids greet him warmly in his memory, asking if he was scolded again. Walking through the empty hall, he apologizes, knowing his friends are now gone. Reaching a large set of double doors, he cautiously places a hand on the wood. He pushes the door open just a crack, peering into the dark, silent room. His gaze falls on the dining hall's fireplace as he wonders if it is safe. Stepping into the room, his expression is tense, his senses on high alert. A memory surfaces of his mistress, Elsa, asking if he is ready for her instructions. She calmly tells him he must retrieve something important from the treasury. By the fireplace, she explains to a younger Lenos that this is a necessary task. She reveals the fireplace stone is enchanted, only responding to those with permission. With the explanation over, she announces it is time to go, and he quietly agrees. Holding lanterns, they descend the dark stone steps into the gloom of the vault. He asks if a simple barred door is the entrance, but she points elsewhere. Before a menacing dragon-headed door, she prepares to reveal the crucial password. Her voice is solemn as she begins to utter the secret words. In the present, Lenos speaks the password aloud. I don't understand. As the heavy stone door grinds open, he stands alone at the threshold. Inside the treasury, he looks upon the priceless family heirlooms encased in glass. He recalls the memory of his mistress teaching him how to open the vault. Turning his back on the treasures, he whispers a quiet, sorrowful apology. He questions what value these objects have compared to the lives of his family. Peeking out the door, he admits to himself that he truly cannot comprehend it. The imposing sealed door of the vault stands as a silent, heavy monument. He slumps against the cold stone, his body language one of utter defeat. His expression is a mixture of conflict and despair as he leans against the door. He remembers the kitchen and dining hall, once full of life and warmth. Deciding to clean up the mess from the battle, he reaches for a door. A happy memory of 3 maids welcoming him back with food fills his mind. The present-day kitchen is now spotlessly clean but eerily silent and empty. He thinks how the painful familiarity of the room makes the silence unbearable. With a heavy heart, he turns and steps away from the empty kitchen. In a quiet room, Linus discovers a package, wondering what it is. He picks up the box, examining it with curiosity near other bundles. Unwrapping it, he wonders if someone has just returned from a shopping trip. His face shows shock as he identifies the contents as preserved, hard-baked bread. Turning his attention to the box, he begins to open it with apprehension. A sudden jolt of recognition flashes across his face as he sees what's inside. He pulls out a dark formal uniform, holding it up to inspect the garment. The familiar fabric and buttons confirm his dawning realization. He remembers this uniform. A memory shows him with the staff as the master had the uniform tailored for him. Stunned, he realizes the belongings left behind were for others, but this was for him. He argues with himself that this package's value is different. It's not for guarding a treasury. A vision of the kind, smiling household staff floods his memory with warmth. He understands the package was prepared to allow him to escape, a final act of protection. Overwhelmed, he sobs, wishing they had been the ones to survive and flee to safety. Under a snowy sky, the grand estate stands silent behind its closed gate. With heavy hands, he pulls the main gate shut one final, sorrowful time. He reflects that what they left him was far more precious than any treasure. Memories of happy times with the master and young mistress flash through his mind. He recalls the gentle matriarch and playing as a child, irreplaceable moments of joy. Ascending a ruined staircase, he prepares to erect a final barrier to protect their memory. A sudden movement catches his eye and he calls out, sensing someone is there. 2 haggard men appear, not soldiers but townspeople, looking back with suspicion. He notices a dark trickle of blood on one man's arm, realizing he's injured. His compassion overriding his caution, he steps forward, offering to help with the injury. The 2 men recoil instantly, their faces masks of pure, unadulterated terror. They scramble backward in a panic, yelling in fear as he approaches them. He stops, utterly bewildered by their extreme reaction to his offer of help. One man brandishes a stick, screaming for him to stay back in utter terror. The man's terrified shout labels him a monster, stunning Linus into silence. He looks around confused, sensing no demonic presence that could explain their fear. One of the men screams in panic that he is about to be killed. They plead for help, claiming a monster has taken on a human form. Another man shouts for the guards, telling the monster to stay away from them. His eyes wide with shock, the young man questions how he could possibly be a monster. He sits alone in a desolate, rocky wasteland, the tail of a slain beast nearby. The memory of a townsperson screaming at him not to come closer haunts his thoughts. Clutching his chin, he desperately wonders what he has become. He checks his clothes, observing that they are stained with blood, but it is not his own. Touching his head, he confirms that no horns have sprouted from his hair. He runs a hand along his neck, noting that his skin remains unchanged. By a small fire, he reflects on how no monsters attacked him in the dangerous forest. Hugging his knees to his chest, he is overwhelmed by a profound sense of loneliness. He lets out a deep, weary sigh, the emotional and physical toll of his ordeal evident. A warm memory surfaces of his entire found family, laughing together in a sunlit clearing. Huddled in the cold, he is tormented by the contrast between the past and his present solitude. A storm of sorrow, frustration, and pain swirls around him as the last embers fade. His campfire dies completely, leaving him alone in the darkness with his grief. Utterly exhausted, he closes his eyes, feeling the immense fatigue of his journey. He lies down on the hard ground, wishing the entire day had just been a nightmare. A voice whispers his name, and his eyes snap open in the darkness. Instinctively scrambling up, he grabs a knife and demands to know who is there. At the mouth of the cave, he sees his entire found family standing before him. Stunned, he stammers their names, questioning how his master and mistress could be here. His gaze falls on Errol's leg, which is wrapped in a bandage glowing with a dark curse. He sees the other men of the house, who clutch grievous wounds on their chests. His master Falco is also there, his arm gone, and Linos wonders if this is a dream. Falco explains they were attacked by a wyvern, expressing immense relief that Linos is alive. Errol steps forward, teasingly asking why he looks so shocked and if he is unhappy to see her. Completely flustered, Linos stammers that it's not that at all, his mind reeling. The matriarch Elsa embraces him, her face streaked with tears of joy that he is safe. He thinks to himself that he is the one who should be expressing such profound relief. The dam of his composure finally breaks, and he sobs with overwhelming joy that they are alive. Later, the reunited group stands together in a rocky passage, weary but safe. Falco suggests they rest, and the matriarch agrees, admitting she is tired from walking. The small party gathers around a magically kindled fire, finally taking a much-needed respite. Elsa offers Linos some of her homemade sweets, while Errol presents her own lumpy concoction. Linos expresses her uncertainty, while an older woman calmly asks if she can fulfill the request. A young man and a blonde woman react with shared disgust to a strange-looking meal served in a bowl. The dark-haired young man, Linos, agrees cheerfully to a suggestion from his companion. The woman, Iriru, points to the strange food with surprise, announcing that she was the one who bought it. While Linos is eating, Iriru calls him over for a private conversation away from the others. Linos respectfully asks his long-haired master, Falco, what he wishes to discuss with him. The master's sudden intensity startles Linos, whose face contorts in surprise from the unexpected action. The master stares at him intently, questioning Linos about his very displeased expression. A single tear forms in the young man's eye, a silent testament to his inner turmoil. Linos confesses that with his magic completely gone, he feels utterly useless to them now. The master looks on wearily, lamenting that the royal library's precious records are all gone. Linos looks up in shock, addressing his master with the formal title of Your Highness. He drops to his knees, apologizing profusely for his perceived failures and shortcomings. The prince admits with a small smile that he was the one who chose his words poorly. He praises Linos, telling him he ultimately succeeded in protecting the nation from Kalgi's grasp. Overwhelmed by the praise, Linos struggles to accept it, feeling he is unworthy of such words. A tearful, happy smile breaks through as he expresses his joy for the prince's survival. The prince looks on with a soft smile, quietly agreeing with the young man's sentiment. He remarks that the idea of starting over as an ordinary man sounds rather interesting. A noble elderly woman listens intently as the prince speaks with her in a private moment. The matriarch laughs warmly, observing that it can be very difficult to act ordinary. The prince suggests that Linos should now live his life as a free man, just like him. Linos looks on with a stunned expression, trying to process the incredible offer from his companions. His companions watch him with warm, knowing smiles, silently offering their encouragement. Clenching his fist, he chokes out an emotional agreement to their life-altering proposal. The prince encourages him to live freely from this point on and follow his own path. The matriarch assures him that the treasure he guards will protect him on his journey. Linos protests, his voice full of guilt over the fate of the people from the Warasa family. The matriarch gently explains they never revealed the treasure's location in order to protect them. A memory reveals the matriarch's careful planning and foresight in managing the household staff. The smiling maids in a memory were never ordered to risk their lives for the treasure. The prince mentions their good fortune in finding the food and supplies his family had prepared. Iriru explains they always believed he would return, so they gratefully prepared for that day. Moved to tears by their unwavering faith in him, he can only manage a choked reply. The matriarch announces that it is finally time for their group to eat their meal. He takes a bite of the food and exclaims with pure delight at its delicious taste. The entire group shares the warm meal together, their spirits lifted by the comforting food. His companions explain that this is the taste of his homeland, the signature flavor of the Barsam family. He quietly confirms that he remembers the familiar taste of home very well. The prince calls his name, announcing that he has something very important he needs to ask him. He reveals that the name Linos was originally intended for his own son, who died at birth. Linos is stunned, finally understanding the profound weight of the special name he carries. The matriarch confesses that despite his status as a slave, she has always considered him her own child. She playfully asks if he would mind having an old woman like her for a parent. The prince formally asks if he will accept the name and title of Linos Yserm. Kneeling before them, Linos vows to treasure the precious name they have bestowed upon him. He rises, questioning why they are revealing all of this to him at such a critical time. The scene shows a close-up of Ariru's beautiful but incredibly sorrowful face. The bearded man's expression is somber, reflecting the heavy mood of the group. The prince's gaze is steady and serious, foretelling a difficult truth that must be told. Another companion's face is shown, his expression equally grim and full of resolve. The matriarch's face is etched with a deep and profound sadness, her eyes closed. Linos is in a dreamlike state, murmuring that this feeling is just like before. A smiling Ariru announces that the meal was delicious, but now she must leave. She tells him that dawn is near, and she will be gone by the time he awakens. He questions where she is going, not understanding the finality of her farewell. In the dream, he declares his firm intention to go along with her on her journey. His entire found family smiles, thanking him and wishing him a free and happy life. The beautiful dream sours as he screams for them to stop their words of farewell. He recognizes this scene from countless nightmares, a farewell he must somehow prevent. He screams for them not to go, his voice cracking as he begs them to wait for him. Collapsing to his knees in the dream, he desperately screams out Ariru's name. His body trembles with the immense effort of fighting against the inevitable goodbye. She teases him gently for finally using her first name at such a desperate moment. Her eyes fill with tears as she asks if he will be all right when he wakes. He pleads with her, hoping she will laugh and tell him this was all just a joke. She wishes she could, but promises that she will always be watching over him. He screams that a beautiful story is meaningless without them by his side to share it. She understands that without being able to see and touch, words have lost their meaning. Linos trembles, his head bowed in a state of overwhelming sorrow and profound grief. Ariru's voice is choked with her own unspeakable sadness and regret. Tears stream down her face as she apologizes for having to leave him all alone. She reassures him that even so, they are always a part of him now. She explains that his skills, his kindness, and his magic were all inherited from them. He inherited every part of his current self from the people he loved and lost. He quietly accepts this truth, finally understanding what she's trying to tell him. She says that everything he does from now on will be proof of their existence. She pulls him into a tight, comforting embrace, her arms wrapping securely around him. She encourages him to do his best, promising that she will be doing the same. Stunned by her words of encouragement, he can only stare back at her in silence. She beams, vowing to do her best so that they can one day meet again. He is taken aback by her sudden and serious talk of making a promise. She asks about the traditions for making promises in his distant homeland. She explains her homeland's tradition of linking pinkies to form an unbreakable bond. With a bright, playful smile, she exclaims at how romantic the gesture is. She takes his hand, linking her small fingers securely with his to seal their vow. His sudden composure surprises her, and she teases him for being so serious. She declares that his difficult journey ahead only makes her more determined to see him again. A gentle smile touches his lips as he sincerely thanks Ariru for everything. A memory flashes of a happy, carefree Ariru clutching a small, ornate locket to her chest. She agrees brightly, bidding him a cheerful farewell until they can meet again. The happy memory shatters, replaced by a devastating image of her horrified face. Linos awakens with a jolt, pulled from the depths of his intense and emotional dream. He sits alone in the desolate landscape, realizing with a sigh that it was all a dream. He looks at his hand, feeling the faint, lingering warmth of her promise on his finger. He clutches his hand, knowing that the promise he made to Ariru must be kept. He stands, gazing down the long and barren path that stretches out before him. He muses that with no destination in mind, perhaps simply continuing to live is an option. A sudden, deafening crash echoes through the canyon, startling him from his thoughts. He sees two grotesque monsters locked in a vicious and desperate struggle for survival. He watches the conflict from a distance, his expression one of stunned, silent observation. A hand clenches, crushing a small, glowing magical item as a voice ponders, giving a light punishment. A massive discharge of crackling black lightning erupts with overwhelming force. The silhouette of a monstrous beast roars in agony as it is vaporized by the blast. Linos touches his chin, a questioning look on his face as he wonders about his miscalculation. Standing in a rocky canyon, he calls out, questioning if he misjudged the power's intensity. A colossal, fluffy white fox creature beams with pure joy, thanking him for the rescue. Linos looks on, still trying to process the strange and unexpected turn of events. With an expression of pure shock, he asks if the one who just spoke was indeed the creature. The fox happily confirms it was the one who spoke, again expressing its profound gratitude for being saved. The creature dips its massive head, inquisitively asking Linos what seems to be the matter. Noticing his shock, it sympathetically suggests he must be hungry and offers him the dead monster to eat. Linos recoils in horror, frantically waving his hands as he adamantly refuses to eat the creature. He explains to the fox that he only used a little magic, intending to run if it wasn't enough. For some reason, he notes, he seems to be able to adjust his power now, something he couldn't do before. The fox listens with a slightly disappointed look, a small bead of sweat on its brow. Linos smiles, saying he's rested and regained his strength, and now offers to heal the fox's injuries. He gently touches the fox's head, and the creature visibly relaxes under his healing touch. As he channels his magic, Linos chants a healing incantation, his eyes closed in concentration. Fox shivers with pleasure as the warm, magical energy flows through it. Linos asks how it feels, reassuring the fox that he won't eat it, and it has nothing to fear. The fox, now perched happily on his shoulder, responds with an enthusiastic, "Yes!" It then gestures with its head, asking if he would be so kind as to heal its wounded unicorn friend. Linos gives a confident wink, assuring the fox that it's an easy task for him. With a thoughtful expression, he wonders aloud about the situation, the fox still on his head. He approaches the unicorn, questioning if all animals in this world are capable of speech. The fox proudly explains that as a 200-year-old spirit fox, it has learned the human tongue. Linos is taken aback by this revelation, while the fox happily confirms it. With a proud flourish, the fox drapes itself over his head, stating its pure white body is proof of its divinity. Linos gently tells the unicorn not to move while he treats its injuries, observing that it is indeed a unicorn. As his hand approaches, the wound on the unicorn's flank erupts with dark, corrupted energy. He cries out in alarm as the creature rears up, startled by the sudden flare of dark magic. The fox clings to the unicorn's mane, reassuring it that Linos is a good person and it's better not to move. Linos shouts at the fox, telling it that its actions are not helping the situation at all. Once the unicorn calms, the fox announces that it's safe for Linos to approach again. Linos gently apologizes to the unicorn for startling it, his hand reaching out to soothe the creature. He touches the deep, dark wound, noting its severity as he prepares to begin the healing process. As his healing magic flows, a flicker of memory appears in his mind's eye. He recalls the joy of healing his friends, his found family, a bittersweet memory of a happier time. The vision continues, showing him laughing and joking with his companions, including the smiling Errol. Back in the present, his expression is somber, a single tear escaping as he finishes the healing. He instructs the now healed unicorn to try moving a little to test its leg. The unicorn prances joyfully as the fox translates its thanks, exclaiming that it no longer feels any pain. Linos watches them with a sad, distant expression, lost in his memories. The fox turns to him with concern, asking if he is all right. It gently informs him that he was crying. The fox astutely observes that because of it, he remembered the family he lost. A vision of his smiling friends flashes again, the fox noting they even appeared in his dreams to encourage him. Linos hangs his head in sorrow, whispering that he couldn't give anything back to them. The fox watches him, its expression full of empathy. It hops down from the unicorn, a thoughtful look on its face. The creature gently nuzzles its soft cheek against his, and he looks down in surprise, asking what it's doing. He realizes with a start that the little creature is trying to comfort him. A faint, sad smile touches his lips as he leans into the soft warmth, thanking the fox. He watches as the fox clumsily begins to eat some reeds he provided. The creature munches happily on the simple meal, holding the stalk with both paws. Linos rests his chin in his hands, remarking on how ungraceful it is, while the fox declares it delicious. He smiles wistfully, commenting that the simple meal reminds him of the delicious food prepared by his former house's head chef. The fox's tone suddenly turns serious, stating it's unbelievable that someone who healed its wounds also killed so many people. Linos is stunned into silence, his face paling as he asks what the creature could possibly know. The fox explains that part of the reason it initially feared him was because of his aura. It elaborates that his ability to perceive the emotions of others has become a curse, tainted by the sorrow of the lives he took. The fox gently sniffs at his collar, sensing the lingering darkness. It concludes that while he is not evil, the sheer number of people he killed was simply too great. The creature reveals that this is the curse that now clings to his body. Linos slumps to the ground, whispering the word curse in dawning horror. He clutches his head, finally understanding why the people of the kingdom feared him so. The fox adds that, fortunately, the people of the castle town were unharmed. Linos looks up in anguish, realizing that the families of the soldiers he killed must be among them. He stares at the distant town under a snowy sky, certain that their relatives are there. Bearing his face in his hands, he despairs that he has made others feel the same sadness and loneliness he now feels. The fox gently chastises him for dwelling on things he cannot know for certain, as if they are facts. Linos listens, his expression still full of conflict and guilt. The fox watches him with a wise, patient expression. It offers a sliver of hope, explaining that because he helped and healed a divine beast, his curse has already been slightly weakened. The fox stands tall, its paws raised dramatically, and offers to break the curse completely with its divine power. Linos looks at the creature, stunned and hesitant to accept such an offer. He sits on a log, admitting to the fox that its offer is too generous and convenient to accept easily. He clenches his fist, torn by his guilt. The fox looks up at him, acknowledging that he feels guilt towards the families of his enemies and sees him as a kind person. Linos looks away, admitting that he feels he deserves to suffer for what he's done. He touches his own hand, a gesture of deep internal conflict. The fox argues that he should break the curse now so that he can live on to atone for his actions. It adds that, in his current cursed state, there is little he can do, and there are ways to live that are not so shameful. A memory of Errol's smiling face appears, her voice encouraging him to do his best, that this is something he can do. The vision fades, leaving him to make his decision. He looks at the fox, asking what would happen if he were to fail and do something wrong again. The fox cocks its head, playfully asking if he intends to do something wicked. The simple question seems to break through his anxiety. A warm, genuine smile spreads across his face as he softly says, "No." The fox instructs him to hold out both of his hands and he complies. With a tiny hop, the creature leaps into his open palms, announcing that it is ready. A brilliant, magical light erupts from the point of contact, startling Linos. He feels a strange sensation, as if a powerful energy is flowing from the creature's body into his own. The fox looks quite pleased with itself, its paws glowing with residual magic. It announces that the transfer is complete and everything is all right now, asking if this is sufficient. The creature explains that this is a different sort of matter than its dealings with its elders. Linos, a gentle smile on his face, thanks the creature for its help. The fox suddenly becomes animated, asking what its name is, and what about its unicorn friend? It clarifies that it doesn't have a name and eagerly asks if Linos will give it one. The creature explains that receiving a name as a divine familiar will elevate its status and power. With a thoughtful smile, Linos decides to give his fox companion a name as thanks. He snaps his fingers, playfully settling on the name Gon after considering Kitsune. Gon, with a deadpan expression, tells his master not to look so obviously disappointed. The unicorn Irimo perks up, seeming to think its own white coat is quite cool. Noticing the unicorn's hopeful look, Linos turns to it, preparing to offer it a name. Extending a gentle hand, he softly asks the unicorn how it likes the name Irimo. Irimo nuzzles against him happily, while Gon expresses relief that it's a good name. Linos announces to a contented Gon that it's time for them to leave the forest. The little fox leaps up with a joyous cry, declaring that they will all go with him. Gon happily drapes itself over Linos' shoulders, exclaiming that travel is more fun with friends. A soft chuckle escapes Linos as he enjoys the warmth of his fluffy companion. He smiles warmly, patting both Gon and Irimo, and says he's happy to have them along. Now perched on his shoulder, Gon whispers, asking where they will go after leaving the forest. Walking through a rocky pass, Linos admits he doesn't know much about this country or world. Gon helpfully points out that the Hideta Kingdom is the closest nation to their current location. The fox's expression turns troubled as it begins to mention a serious complication. Seeing both his companions suddenly look downcast, Linos asks them what is wrong. A flashback reveals Irimo once belonged to the cruel royalty of the Hideta kingdom. The memory shows that the creature was mistreated, forcing it to eventually escape. Linos looks surprised, questioning Irimo's connection to the royal family. Magnificent feathered wings suddenly unfurl from Irimo's back, revealing its true nature. He exclaims in shock, realizing Irimo is a rare and valuable Pegasus unicorn hybrid. Stroking Irimo's neck, Linos understands why the creature had been captured and hunted. Irimo nuzzles against its new master, communicating its unwavering desire to stay with him. The unicorn expresses its profound loyalty, having found the person it was fated to be with. Linos closes his eyes, deeply moved by the creature's devotion, and offers his thanks. He promises to protect Irimo, but gently warns it not to push itself too hard. Gon cheers with unrestrained enthusiasm, fully supporting Linos' heartfelt promise. With a determined look, Linos gets ready to set off on their journey together. The small fox Gon is seen happily gnawing on what appears to be a large beetle. Linos points forward with a confident smile, announcing that it's time for them to go. The trio walks through a vast mountainous landscape, their destination set, the Hideta Kingdom. After a long journey, an exhausted Linos leans on Irimo, wondering if they've finally arrived. He laments how difficult the journey through the Runa forest was on the plains. Yawning widely, he complains that he hasn't had a proper place to rest his body. He gently strokes Irimo's head, expressing his concern for the creature's well-being. Two guards approach, one demanding to know where Linos came from and to state his name. Linos formally announces that he is a barrier master from the Barsam Marquisate of Juka. The guards are utterly stunned by his claim of having come from the Yucca kingdom. One guard points his spear threateningly, dismissively questioning if Linos is just a child. Linos holds up his hands, realizing announcing his noble name in an enemy nation was a mistake. A knight approaches, stating that he overheard their conversation from the gate. The knight Seono introduces himself, intrigued that a nobleman crossed the treacherous forest. In a formal meeting, a blonde woman asks Linos directly if the Yucca kingdom has truly collapsed. With a serious expression, Linos confirms that there is no mistake. The kingdom is gone. An official asks if the demon lord attacked, which Linos confirms happened while he was cursed. Two other officials discuss how Marshal Kalgi's rebellion led to the destruction of the royal castle. A flashback shows a smiling man as the narrative explains he was protecting the nation from demons. Sono listens intently, understanding that a great dragon was rumored to have appeared. A knight in armor sits with his arms crossed, listening to the report with a grim look. The knight expresses relief that their intelligence was correct and thanks Linos for the information. Linos looks down, confused, as a hand gently takes his own in a surprising gesture. Sono apologizes for the inconvenience and requests a meeting with the Prime Minister the next day. Both Linos and Gon are surprised by the unexpected summons to meet the Prime Minister. Seono informs them that he will arrange for their lodging for the night. A woman offers to guide Linos to his room, and he agrees, though he seems uncertain. He eagerly accepts the offer to be shown to his accommodations for the evening. Linos is stunned by the lavishness of the building, exclaiming that it's far too grand. The guide informs him that she will return to fetch him in the morning. Linos politely thanks the woman for her assistance as she departs. He collapses onto the enormous, soft bed, marveling at the splendor of the room. Lounging on a chaise, he sighs with relief, finally feeling a sense of peace. He notices guards subtly posted outside, realizing he is under constant surveillance. He tells Gon he only intends to report on Juka's fall at his meeting with the Prime Minister. He looks down at his travel-worn clothes, noting that they are a bit dirty and worn. His gaze falls on his hand as he touches his ornate sleeve, lost in thought. The next day, Seono arrives to escort him, cheerfully addressing him as Lord Linos. Linos, now dressed in a fine dark suit, politely wishes Seono a good morning. Seono is comically shocked by Linos' drastic and impressive change in appearance. He apologizes, admitting he almost went to the wrong room, but Linos confirms it's him. Seono explains that a carriage has been prepared to take them to their important meeting. The carriage travels across a grand stone bridge towards a magnificent white castle. Linos stares out the window in shock, realizing their destination isn't a military building. Seono confirms their destination is the castle and says he will wait for Linos inside. He introduces another attendant who will guide Linos the rest of the way. A new attendant leads Linos through a grand hall toward the Prime Minister's reception room. The attendant gestures to a large ornate door, telling Linos to wait there. Peeking inside, Linos notices an armored soldier standing guard within the room. He realizes with growing unease that there are unseen guards stationed everywhere. An elderly man with a monocle greets him, confirming he is the Lord Linos he was expecting. The man welcomes him after his long journey and politely invites him to take a seat. With his eyes closed, Linos formally reintroduces himself as a barrier master of the Barsum Marquisate. The man Vilas smiles, acknowledging Linos' status as a former slave now under the Marquis's care. Vilas asks about his master, and Linos confirms that he is well. His expression turns serious as he asks about the situation in the now leaderless Juka kingdom. Linos expresses his grave concern that the probability of civil war is extremely high. He asks with sharp intensity if their empire plans to dispatch troops to Juka. Vilas dismisses the idea, stating it would only increase their own burdens and casualties. He laments that with the Marquis and Marshal gone, ambitious and dangerous figures are now emerging. Linos is surprised, wondering if that is how the Marshal is viewed by other nations. Vilas asks if the rumor about the Marquis working for 3 days straight is true. He recalls that by the time he returned from a trip, it was already a chaotic festival. Vilas then asks Linos what he knows about the fate of the great Archmage Falco. Linos is shocked by the question, exclaiming that Falco is his master. Vilas looks down somberly, quietly acknowledging the tragic news of his sacrifice. A flashback shows the wild-haired Falco, a harsh Spartan instructor who drove young students out of the empire. Linos smiles fondly, admitting that, while his master was strict, he considers him a good father. Vilas closes his eyes, remarking that it sounds like Falco lived a fulfilling and interesting life. Vilas is suddenly interrupted as a voice calls for him to enter a new chamber. An armored guard clanks to a halt behind him, startling the old man with his sudden presence. A young man named Linos stares with wide, shocked eyes, questioning if what he just heard is true. The elderly Vilas smirks, inviting Linos to an unprecedented audience with His Majesty the Emperor. With a formal tone, Linos introduces himself as a humble servant of the Barsum Marquisate. In a grand throne room, the Emperor declares that an exception has been made for this audience. Linos is stunned, realizing the imposing man seated with Vilas is indeed the Emperor. The Emperor's gaze is sharp and intense, his eyes fixed piercingly on Linos. A bead of sweat forms on Linos' brow as he nervously endures the monarch's unsettling stare. Breathing heavily, the Emperor mutters to himself, feeling a strange unease and questioning what is happening. His eyes dart around as he wonders if some unseen force is at work in the shadows. Linos, in profile, considers what the most important aspect of this strange situation is. He admits to himself with a nervous expression that he cannot understand what the Emperor is saying. Vilas, annoyed, urges the Emperor to speak clearly and relay the information he has. The Emperor calmly states that he is merely repeating what he has been told. Linos confirms that the information is correct and that it is a repetition of what he knows. A tense silence falls as the Emperor continues to stare at Linos without speaking. Linos gratefully thanks the Emperor for the audience and respectfully asks to be dismissed. Outside on the castle steps, he stretches dramatically, exclaiming how incredibly tense that was. The cheerful guard, Seono, greets Linos warmly, acknowledging his hard work. Seono kindly offers to give Linos a tour of the capital, an invitation Linos eagerly accepts. During their walk, Seono mentions that the Prime Minister wishes to invite Linos to dinner. Visibly flustered but pleased by the honor, Linos agrees to attend the dinner party. Seono explains the capital's unique structure, noting its impressive freedom and organization. Linos admires the convenient layout of the city's residential and commercial areas. His guide points out a massive, impressive building, identifying it as the university. Seono then gestures to another splendid structure, explaining it is the city's grand theater. Watching students pass by, Linos thinks to himself what a wonderful country this is. A handsome blonde aristocrat observes them, musing that this must be the kingdom His Highness governs. The aristocrat calls out to Linos, asking if his formal attire is ready for the evening. Later, the aristocrat Vilas looks over documents, wondering if he will see a certain Errol again. He seems lost in thought, questioning if their paths are destined to cross once more. Seono asks Linos if he is buying a gift for someone special. In his room, Linos unpacks a surprising number of purchases from his shopping trip. A smiling Seono announces that the time has come for the dinner engagement. Linos relaxes on the bed, admitting to his familiar that he bought more than he intended. The fox-like Gon excitedly reminds him of his important dinner party with the Prime Minister. Linos plans to use his unique powers to start a useful line of work. He wonders what they will discuss, assuming it will be about his former master. He thinks about the lavish, multi-course meal that has been laid out just for him. The blonde aristocrat Vilas arrives at the dinner, offering a polite apology for his tardiness. The elder Vilas greets him warmly, addressing him as Vilas and saying they were waiting. Vilas then introduces himself as the Emperor's second son, completely stunning Linos. The young prince bows apologetically, excusing his earlier rudeness towards Linos. He suggests they put aside difficult matters and simply talk for the evening. Linos is confused, wondering why a member of the royal family would go to such lengths. The elder Vilas reveals his connection, explaining that Prince Vilas is his own grandson. He asks Linos if he understands the situation, noting that he is free to refuse their offer. Prince Vilas formally requests Linos to serve as a guard for the imperial family. Linos is utterly shocked by the request, exclaiming, "Guard the imperial family!" The prince explains that the main problem is his ambitious and reckless sister, Ricolette. He describes her as strong-willed and notes her actions are causing trouble with other nobles. The emperor appears weak and is unable to handle his daughter's behavior strictly. Prince Vilas expresses his pain at watching the difficult situation unfold with his family. He reveals that there have already been violent incidents involving his faction. The elder Vilas reiterates his plea, asking Linos to guard both the prince and the princess. The prince adds that the empire desperately wants to avoid a full-blown internal conflict. Linos is overwhelmed by the weight of the request, a bead of sweat on his face. He feels the immense task is too large for a newcomer like him to handle. However, the elder Vilas expresses his complete and unwavering confidence in Linos' abilities. He cites Linos' connection to the Balsas family and his esteemed master Falco. Prince Vilas adds that he wishes to hire Linos to build a relationship of trust. The elder Vilas chuckles, agreeing warmly with his grandson's more personal approach. Linos feels the atmosphere is strangely familiar, reminding him of the Balsas family. He accepts the duty, vowing not to bring shame to his master's name. A joyful Linos points out their new house to his companions, Gon and Irimo. Gon is impressed by the grandeur of the mansion and its beautiful, lush grounds. The fox cheekily asks if they're just going to laze about and eat for free. Linos admits he'll need more time to establish a steady source of income. He feels a slight unease as the flow of events feels eerily familiar to him. Gon asks about the house's history, and Linos reminds his familiar to take good care of it. The fox asks if the house formerly belonged to the imperial family. The estate is revealed to be rich in natural resources and only an hour from the capital. Linos notes with a thrill that the property was cheap because magical beasts appear nearby. He is delighted to discover a fully equipped stable for his unicorn, Irimo. He happily gestures to a formal reception room, admitting he doesn't know how he'll use it. Wearing a chef's hat, he gives an enthusiastic thumbs up to the modern kitchen. He relaxes in a luxurious bath, soaking in the comforts of his new life. A delighted Linos plans out the use of the mansion's 4 rooms with his familiar. His new fox-like companion, Yenkin, expresses its fondness for the new estate. Linos notes that while his life is now comfortable, he still needs a proper bedroom. He decides to ride Irimo to the capital to go shopping for necessities. He announces his grand plan to start a new business in the capital city. An official confirms he has used the Merchants Guild's influence to get formal permission. Yenkin, perched on his shoulder, asks if he has decided on a name for the new company. Linos places his hand firmly on a book or sign, ready to make his declaration. He strikes a dramatic pose, triumphantly announcing the name Dark Company. A view of the magnificent capital castle is shown, setting the scene for a new chapter. Princess Ricolette peers out from her carriage, her gaze fixed on the city below. She is visibly shocked by the lively and raucous brothel district she sees. Her view from the carriage is of a bustling street filled with people and activity. Her attendant, Shooter, identifies the district, noting its unusual liveliness at this early hour. Ricolette is deeply disturbed by the scenes of public debauchery and celebration. Men and women laugh and embrace openly in the streets, their joy a stark contrast to her mood. She declares with conviction that such a place has no right to exist in her father's empire. Shooter confirms their plan to raid the district is in motion, her expression determined. An older official with them expresses reservations, questioning the wisdom of the plan. He argues that the district, for all its flaws, offers the women a form of independence. A lecherous-looking man laughs heartily with one of the women from the district. Ricolette passionately refuses to allow a place where women are forced to sell their bodies. Shooter agrees wholeheartedly, stating that such a wicked place must be eradicated. Shooter reassures her mistress that her concern for public morals is entirely justified. A man named Shooter reports to Ricolette, confirming her concerns about public disturbances. Looking out at the street, Ricolette sincerely expresses her gratitude to Shooter. Linos, clutching a note, realizes he's lost and needs to turn right. With a flash of recognition, his face breaks into a wide, happy grin. His fox companion, Gon, excitedly points out their destination, the Dark Company. A mother and child are silhouetted before the storefront of the new business. Lenos enthusiastically plans to put a sign in the first-floor reception window. The interior boasts grand furnishings, including an ornate chandelier and bookshelves. He decides the spacious second floor will serve as their main office. Lenos outlines his business plan, which includes protection, training, and odd jobs. Gon expresses hope for a thriving business, and Lenos agrees with excitement. Peering out the window, Lenos falls silent, his attention captured by something below. Gon asks if Lenos is a fox, to which he playfully affirms. Lenos clasps his hands, offering a prayer for prosperity to the fox deity. A sudden, sharp scream from outside shatters the peace, startling Lenos. He realizes the commotion is happening very close to their new establishment. In the street, a couple gossips about soldiers causing trouble once again. Lenos observes the scene, thinking it's a pleasant country despite the unrest. From her carriage, Ricolette watches with cold resolve, planning to intervene. A woman is arrested, furiously screaming her innocence as a man insults her. A soldier bellows at the crowd, accusing them of disrupting public order. A brothel madam smirks, recognizing some of her regular patrons among the authorities. One of Ricolette's knights announces the closure of the brothels by royal decree. The soldiers react with flustered embarrassment and anger to Lenos's words. Lenos steps forward from the crowd, calmly asking the soldiers to wait. Ricolette turns, her expression one of surprise at the unexpected intervention. He confidently tells the official there is a much simpler solution to this. The knight dismisses him, curtly telling him not to speak out of turn. Shuta advises Ricolette to step back inside the carriage for her safety. Lenos explains that if customers stopped coming, the shops would naturally close. Shuta tells Ricolette that the shops only continue to exist because of demand. She realizes he is suggesting they find alternative employment for the women. Lenos directly challenges the soldiers, asking if they will stop being customers. A group of soldiers, led by a mustachioed man, are flustered and embarrassed by the accusation. Enraged, the lead soldier raises his fist, shouting an insult at the young man. His attack is abruptly stopped, his arm caught in a grip of surprising strength. Lenos delivers a cold warning, stating that their bodies will be the next to break. The sweating, defeated soldiers are ordered to make a hasty retreat from the scene. Observing their withdrawal, Lenos reflects that Ricolette's political maneuvering is just as he'd heard. The women he defended celebrate around him, thanking him for his incredible help. In a private room, the older official complains about the difficult and unpleasant young man. He remarks to Ricolette and Shooter that Lenos is a truly interesting character. Shooter confidently reassures Ricolette that the people will eventually understand her righteous actions. Ricolette, looking troubled and uncertain, quietly agrees with her attendant's assessment. On a city street, a line of people has formed, drawing curious glances. Two women note the queue is for the new Barrier Master's shop, which has an excellent reputation. Inside, the fox-like familiar Gon cheerfully holds up a clipboard for a waiting customer. Lenos professionally presents a detailed quote for a caravan escort to his clients. His unicorn companion Irimo even acts as a gentle playmate for a customer's child. A satisfied client stops by, expressing his thanks for a previous job well done. Lenos returns the thanks, modestly saying the client helped him out as well. As a gift, the client offers a basket of fresh bread from his own shop. Lenos and Gon accept the present with warm, grateful smiles. Later, they enjoy the bread, with Gon getting a bit too excited about the food. Their peaceful meal is suddenly interrupted by a forceful presence at the counter. A large armored cat man bellows, demanding to know where the Barrier Master's shop is. He angrily questions why he, a hero, has been made to run their errands. Lenos calmly teases the furious hero for being a cat walking on two legs. The hero, Willis, is incensed at being forced to do such a menial task. With a placid smile, Lenos asks the insolent cat man what his business is. With a final shout of frustration, the hero shoves a document into Lenos's hands. Lenos reads the ornate invitation, a request for the Barrier Master to attend a party. A close-up reveals a shocking truth. Lenos is the former Great Demon King. He looks up with a mocking smile, politely declining the hero's errand. The hero slams the door on his way out, shouting he'll find someone else. Lenos feigns ignorance of the hero's identity to his confused companions. In a book-lined room, a young man nervously laughs about a lively woman causing trouble in the brothel district. His expression turns serious as he recalls the soldiers acted on the first princess's orders, asking his companions for their opinion of her. The older man and a woman exchange a thoughtful look, wondering if they are seriously being asked about the next monarch. The woman questions the young man's scholarly pursuits, asking why he would meddle in such affairs instead of serving his lord. Lost in thought, the man notes that since a certain Shuta became an attendant, surveillance has increased, and he resolves to remember that name. He decides he needs more information and plans to ask the Prime Minister again, a thought that makes his companion laugh. A long-haired blonde woman, Ricolette, stands by a large window overlooking the castle, her expression deeply troubled. She reflects on the recent interference of a nuisance in the brothel district, admitting it was a solution she couldn't have devised. Gazing out at the castle, she reaffirms her need to study harder to become more useful to her father. Her face softens with sadness as she closes her eyes, whispering her father's name as a memory begins to surface. The scene flashes back to a much younger Ricolette, holding a doll in a garden with her maid. In the memory, she watches her parents and older brother prepare to leave, calling out to them. Little Ricolette asks her parents where they are going, pleading with them to let her come along. Her regal father and veiled mother look back at her, their expressions cold and devoid of any warmth. A woman in a nun's habit steps between Ricolette and her parents, blocking her path. Her small hand reaches out hopefully toward her departing family, but finds only empty air. The nun gently tells the heartbroken girl it's time to play, explaining that her parents were simply busy. Young Ricolette wonders why she is treated so coldly, questioning if she can receive kindness like her brother, the future king. A firm resolve forms in her mind to become useful to her brother so that she can be like him. A close-up shows her determined eyes as she takes her mother's hand, solidifying her decision. The path forward becomes clear to her as she sits with a book, questioning the offer of a home tutor. A dark-haired woman introduces herself as Kurumafaru, her new teacher, as Ricolette calls out to her. Filled with youthful energy, Ricolette declares to her new tutor that there are countless things she wants to learn. Kurumafaru smiles warmly, impressed by Ricolette's spirit and addressing her respectfully. Ricolette beams, a determined blush on her cheeks as she vows to give her studies everything she has. Her tutor comments on how diligent Ricolette is, almost to a painful degree for someone so young. Kurumafaru leans over a younger Ricolette, telling her she will surely become perfect as they study together. The young princess's bandaged fingers grip a quill, writing furiously with the singular goal of becoming useful. Her eyes are wide with exhaustion and unwavering resolve, a single tear escaping from the strain. She rubs her tired eyes, pushing through the fatigue as she continues to read her book. Her tutor guides her through a difficult text, explaining that if she continues, she will surely succeed. Studying late into the night, Ricolette's face is illuminated by a single candle, her determination unwavering. The adult Ricolette stands in a garden, her expression weary as she touches her face, preparing for the challenges ahead. In a grand hall, a fair-haired woman is visibly alarmed as she overhears two men discussing a wise candidate suitable to support the next emperor. A courtier whispers to a nobleman about the princess's popularity and common knowledge. With a look of anguish, Ricolette feels it is wrong for retainers to overstep. She reflects on a court where nobles are judged only by their usefulness. An advisor gravely states that the empress's actions could threaten the king's position. The realization that her father is deeply concerned fills her with horror. Her shock gives way to despair as she feels she is not doing enough. In her study, she collapses, crying out for the perfection she cannot attain. Clinging to her tutor, she begs for more lessons, convinced she is not useful. Her face is a mask of anguish as she pleads to be taught more. Her tutor, Kurumafaru, embraces her, offering comfort in her moment of crisis. The tutor explains that Ricolette now needs to learn through action, not just books. Kurumafaru reveals that there is someone she wants the princess to meet. A handsome knight with sharp eyes formally introduces himself as Shuta. The tutor vouches for Shuta, certain he will be a great help to the princess. He gently takes Ricolette's hand, startling her with the unexpected gesture. Looking at her with empathy, he acknowledges how painful her situation must be. He reassures her that her immense blood, sweat, and tears effort will be rewarded. Ricolette looks back at him, her gaze a mixture of shock and vulnerability. Kneeling before her, he asks that she place her trust and reliance on him. He makes a powerful declaration, pledging that he is her unwavering ally. The weight of his promise lands, her eyes closing for a brief moment. The dam of her emotions finally breaks, and tears of profound relief stream down her face. Her loyal retainers hold her, offering comfort as she sobs openly. Later, Ricolette questions the Empress's recent audacious political behavior. She expresses frustration over the Empress hiring retainers without royal permission. With a troubled look, she asks Shuta if her new aggressive path is truly all right. Kurumafaru expresses her concern over Ricolette's new methods and trust in Shuta. Ricolette voices her fear that her actions will only cause her father more pain. Shuta reminds her that her precarious position will likely draw criticism. He argues that everything she has learned will aid the emperor and the empire. He confidently promises her that a day will come when everyone understands her loyalty. Shuta reaffirms his unwavering support, just as he did when they first met. Ricolette listens, her expression somber, finding a brief moment of hope in his words. A beautiful memory surfaces of a smiling mother and father calling their child necessary and thanking her. In the present, a single tear traces a path down the princess's cheek as a maid calls her name. She wipes her face, hiding her sorrow as she hears her attendant, Shuta, has arrived. With renewed composure, she announces she is coming now, heading toward the waiting maid. Elsewhere, a young man named Linos looks up with a start, questioning what he is seeing. He stands before a small, traditional Japanese shrine, wondering how such an odd structure appeared. From a doorway, he calls out to his small, white fox-like companion, Gon. Gon appears, confirming the shrine has always been in the back garden, holding a smaller plush version of itself. Linos holds up a piece of cloth, calling out Gon's name with a smile. The plush creature in Gon's arms begins to tremble, its face morphing into a terrifying, ghostly visage. Linos recoils in shock, yelling at the creature for making such a horrifying face. He calmly asks Gon if it knows anything about the mysterious shrine that has appeared. Gon explains that as a divine white fox, it must undergo a ritual there. The creature elaborates that it must receive an examination from the great Ohi-sama every 3 years. Linos asks about Ohi-sama, and Gon explains she is the leader of the white foxes. He gently touches the trembling Gon, reassuring it that he will always be its companion. The ghostly creature shakes violently again, and Linos pleads with it to stop making that face. Linos pets Gon, thinking about how much his companion helps him with work and deciphering curses. He reassures the creature that everything is all right and that he will help it. Overcome with fear, Gon becomes nothing more than a simple, trembling ball of fur. Lying dejectedly on the floor, Linos tells the now purring Gon not to be so relaxed when he is not. Gon suddenly becomes angry, telling Linos it was only because it was worried when he wasn't looking. The fox nuzzles him aggressively, seeming to scold him for his earlier nonchalance. Gon licks his face as Linos closes his eyes, exasperated by the creature's mood swings. The fox berates him for playing around when it was so scared for him. Linos resolves to accompany Gon on this task, wanting to get the unpleasant duty over with. At his master's decision, Gon's eyes sparkle with pure joy and excitement. The creature leaps into Linos' arms, affectionately calling him Master. Linos muses that it would be best to bring a gift with them. He reveals a beautifully prepared box of inarizushi and fried tofu as a thoughtful offering. With Gon perched on his shoulder, Linos asks how they are supposed to get to Ohi-sama's location. Gon reassures him that everything will be fine as they approach a grand, sacred torii gate. Linos stands in awe, feeling as if he's been instantly transported back to Japan. A massive gate creaks open, revealing a young man and his fox companion. Two fox-like beings in formal kimonos announce they have been waiting to guide him. Following them, the young man wonders if all animals here can speak, as his own trembles. Their journey leads them to a magnificent, sprawling traditional estate. Inside a vast hall, he and his familiar kneel before two imposing, multi-tailed guardians. The masked figures instruct him to wait for the arrival of Ohi-sama. With a thunderous bark, one guardian commands him to prostrate himself immediately. An immense pressure slams him face first onto the tatami mat. He gasps in shock, his mind reeling from the sudden display of dominance. A cold sweat breaks out across his skin as he trembles uncontrollably with fear. A deep voice commands him to lift his head, and he hesitantly obeys. He is greeted by the sight of a colossal, multi-tailed white fox spirit. The young man and his tiny companion appear insignificant before the divine being. Utterly stunned, he can only stammer about the spirit's incredible size. A cheerful, cat-eared girl appears, confirming this is indeed Ohi-sama. The young man formally introduces himself as Linos of the Barsum Dark House. The girl Bursum asks for forgiveness for her sudden intrusion as a fellow traveler. The great fox spirit acknowledges that it has heard the details of Linos' situation. It states that Linos was the one who helped it when it was cursed and weak. Startled by its words, Linos holds his own trembling fox companion closer. He earnestly explains that being in its presence gives him courage, despite his fear. The great spirit gazes down, listening intently to his heartfelt confession. Bursum, surprised by his sincerity, asks if he truly means what he just said. With a bright, determined expression, he insists his words are from the heart. He remembers his purpose and presents a gift box to change the subject. He explains that he has brought a souvenir as a token of respect for Ohi-sama. A wolf attendant eyes the box, questioning the nature of this souvenir. He opens the gift, revealing glistening pieces of fried tofu. The wolf attendant's eye widens with delight at the sight of the offering. Linos explains it is a human delicacy, traditionally offered to fox deities. The two large wolf attendants devour the tofu with unrestrained glee. One declares it delicious, while the other demands he bring this offering regularly. The Great Spirit declares that while the offering is good, something more is needed. A white fox creature with swirling markings on its head sighs softly and murmurs thoughtfully. A thoughtful Linos holds his fox companion, both murmuring in contemplation. With unrestrained glee, the wolf attendant declares the food is delicious. The other attendant agrees it's a simple request, but there's a condition. With a fierce look, the attendant commands Linos to bring these offerings periodically. The sudden, forceful demand leaves Linos completely flustered and speechless. His small companion, Gon, meekly asks if he can remain as Linos' attendant. In exchange for the delicious food, the other wolf attendant coolly grants the request. The Great Spirit interjects, beginning a more serious part of the conversation. With a knowing smile, Linos realizes his true nature has been completely perceived. The Great Spirit reveals that Linos became a demon lord by killing countless humans. Linos listens, his expression one of shocked acceptance as he confirms the truth. His sudden increase in magical power was the result of absorbing their experiences. The spirit sternly warns him never to use this immense power for evil. With a firm grip, Linos vows to take the Great Spirit's words to heart. Satisfied with his answer, the spirit calmly accepts his vow. The spirit adds that while the offering was good, something else is required. Startled, Linos asks what else is needed if Gon is to stay with him. He is then told he will be granted the powers of divine protection and exorcism. The spirit states that in all things, balance is a necessity. Exorcism will allow dialogue with other tribes, while protection lets him share his power. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Linos expresses his heartfelt thanks for the boon. A majestic unicorn is presented, which will explain the details of his new power. The Great Spirit seems pleased, telling him to proceed with this new knowledge. One of the wolf attendants gives a final gruff reminder not to forget the offerings. Linos is still reeling from the sudden turn of events, utterly bewildered. With a powerful slam of its paw, the Great Spirit announces its departure. The force of its exit sends Linos tumbling out of the shrine grounds. He lands in a heap with a tearful Gon clinging to him, having returned to the estate. Gon weeps with joy, vowing to follow his master for life, happy to have escaped demotion. Later, the wolf attendants note that Ohi-sama has grown quite fond of Linos. In his shop, Linos is surprised by a sudden visitor. A knight named Seono urgently informs him that the Prime Minister has summoned him. Seono greets Linos, acknowledging it's been a while since they last met. Linos apologizes for the state of his shop, flustered by the sudden, important visitor. He asks Seono what the urgent matter could possibly be. Seono, however, seems unable to find the right words to explain the situation. His demeanor changes to one of grim urgency, insisting they must go to the castle now. Linos forces a smile, sensing trouble but agreeing to go immediately. They arrive at a magnificent castle with countless spires and towers. The elderly Prime Minister greets Linos with a surprisingly enthusiastic welcome. His expression then twists into one of cold fury as he demands Linos get rid of someone. He asks if Linos has deduced that an insolent person has appeared. Realizing he misspoke, the Prime Minister rephrases his command with a sigh. He asks Linos to escort a certain royal to the border, much to Linos' surprise. The Prime Minister's expression is grim as he continues his explanation. He reveals that a self-proclaimed hero, a cat person, was captured during a demon subjugation. This cat person is, in fact, the prince of the Cat Beastman nation. Linos and Gon are both shocked, realizing this is the same so-called hero from before. The minister smugly explains this is all a grand performance for his country. He adds that the prince's nation has demanded his return from the Hildata Empire. Linos wryly notes that this has been quite the ordeal already. The minister explains that the prince went on a rampage while his equipment was confiscated. He then wails that his plan was ruined by the first imperial princess, Ricolette. He collapses in despair, lamenting that against her father's authority, he is powerless. Pointing a finger down, Linos cuts through the pathetic display. The minister had wanted to use the prince to create an incident and damage the empire's reputation. Linos coolly deduces that the minister secretly wanted him to dispose of the prince. He asks why the minister didn't simply use the empire's own knights for the task. The minister declares it impossible for knights to escort a royal they've just insulted. Linos calmly accepts the troublesome mission, asking the minister to look after his shop. As they leave, Linos asks the minister how his business is doing so far. He sees an elegant blonde woman approaching with her attendant. A stunningly beautiful and regal woman with long, blonde hair stands before them. Linus looks back at her, his expression calm and composed. The woman, Princess Ricolette, looks at him and asks what he wants. He seems taken aback by her directness, holding a document identifying her. His eyes widen as the realization of who she is fully dawns on him. Ricolette stares back, recognizing him as the rumored barrier mage. Bowing his head, Linus apologizes for his rudeness. He then bluntly states that she has no need to be indebted to him. She is the rumored barrier mage, not her subordinate or the prime minister. He adds that he will give her nothing in return, and she should only revere those she truly respects. Ricolette retorts that she has no need for such an attitude from him, a prince. Linus seems to understand, while the minister notes this is just her way. The reason for the minister and the princess's concern is revealed. Ricolette reflects that his values run counter to the nobility's, wishing they'd met in another time. Later, a guard with a torch leads Linus down a stone corridor. The guard warns him to be careful as they approach the prison cell. Inside, the cat prince, Khan, explodes with rage, recognizing the rude barrier mage. Linus informs him that he will be guarding him during his exile from the country. Khan furiously questions if Linus thinks the hero Willis will forgive this insult. Linus calmly retorts that Khan is the one who brought all this upon himself. Grabbing Khan by the scruff, he tells him to think about his actions on the journey. Soon they are airborne, with Linus riding his winged steed, Irimo. He tells Irimo to land them near the border, and the creature agrees. Linus smiles, feeling deeply grateful for the ability to speak with animals. Khan wails from the wagon, asking why he's being exiled when his power is needed. Linus nonchalantly reveals that he himself is the great demon lord. Khan puffs up his cheeks, believing a true hero should have seen through him. Linus scoffs at his self-proclaimed hero title, asking what gives him the right. He asks if Khan has actually done anything to be recognized as a hero by others. Khan deflates, unable to answer, looking down in shame. Linus simply tells him to watch what he is about to do. With a focused gesture, he prepares to unleash a powerful spell. A massive crystalline barrier shatters before them from his power. He tells Khan that without this level of strength, subjugation is impossible. Khan stares in awe, recognizing that Linus's power is something else entirely. He quietly admits that he knows the name Willis. Later inside the wagon, Linus notes they are losing altitude and approaching the border. They look out over a dark, ominous forest valley below. A startled Linus holds a cloaked cat creature, wondering if someone has arrived. An older, regal cat man named Willis glares down with intense disapproval. The younger cat Khan recognizes Willis, shouting that he has come for him. With a furious roar, Willis lunges forward, insulting the stupid former Prince Khan. Willis angrily details Khan's crimes of stealing treasure and fleeing without royal permission. With a pained expression, Willis admits that he too had to flee his country. Linus holds the small cloaked Khan, who stares forward with a serious gaze. Khan turns to the barrier mage, Linus, asking for guidance on what to do next. Linus thoughtfully considers the question, a bead of sweat on his brow. A memory of his master's advice surfaces, suggesting he start over as a man. Linus advises Khan to travel, meet people, and learn about the world. Willis tells Khan to do something to earn the recognition of those who worried. A flustered Khan agrees to listen, though he pretends it's a great inconvenience. Linus presents a large backpack, explaining it's a parting gift for the road. Khan's eyes light up as he spots a delicious-looking spread of food nearby. Under a starry sky, Khan waves a cheerful goodbye as he and Willis depart. Linus finds himself back at a grand mansion, his temporary home. Completely drained, he collapses onto a plush bed, exhausted despite not using magic. Waking up, Linus finds his familiar, Gon, and asks if anything happened. Gon cheerfully reports that everything was completely peaceful while he slept. A sudden, powerful rumbling shakes the room, startling both Linus and Gon. Now on his feet, Linus questions the source of the powerful ground rumbling. Looking out over a dark forest, he notes this is the strongest tremor yet. He spots the disturbance, realizing it's at the edge of a magical barrier. Through his sight, he sees a swarm of monstrous creatures attacking the boundary. He urgently tells his winged unicorn Irimo to land them nearby. Upon landing, he commands Irimo and Gon to hide for their own safety. He watches as the supposedly unbreakable barrier shatters under the monster assault. Two large reptilian monsters emerge from the breach, their forms imposing. The barrier finally gives way completely with a powerful, explosive sound. A wild grin appears on Linus's face as he realizes the barrier is broken. He prepares for battle, assessing that fire and lightning magic are too risky here. The monsters spot him, declaring that meeting them is his unlucky fate. One of the creatures lunges forward, roaring for him to disappear. Linus's eyes flash with concentration as he prepares a counterattack. He declares his intent to extinguish the monster's attack with water magic. A powerful vortex of water swirls around him as he braces for impact. With a crazed, joyful grin, Linus unleashes his power in a blur of motion. The monsters panic, screaming for retreat from this unknown, terrifying foe. Standing amidst the aftermath, Linus wonders if he drove them all away. Gon nuzzles his cheek as Linus looks into the dark, silent forest. He muses that he shouldn't kill too many, a sly smile on his face. Linus pushes his way through the dense foliage, searching for stragglers. He calls out, asking if any of the monsters from before are still there. He finds a small horned child cowering in fear, begging him to leave. Linus gasps in surprise, realizing he has found a child, not a monster. The terrified girl shrinks away, pleading for him not to come any closer. Her composure shatters and she breaks down, wailing for her mother. A bewildered Linus holds the crying child, completely unsure of what to do. He has brought the lost girl back to the safety of his grand mansion. The girl, now calm, introduces herself as Princess Barris of the Burial Clan. Linus is shocked, realizing the monster he was fighting was a princess. Her expression turns to one of deep shame as she mentions her recent actions. Barris performs an extreme bow of apology, striking her head on the floor. Linus reassures her that he isn't angry, his expression calm and curious. Barris looks up, surprised by his gentle and understanding reaction. He asks her the reason her clan was attacking the Empire. She explains with sorrow that it was due to her father, the Demon Lord's will. Her father decreed the next king would be the one to achieve demon subjugation. Linus asks if she was unhappy about her marriage partner being decided this way. Barris puffs her cheeks in frustration, annoyed by his line of questioning. He presses further, asking if her father valued the country over her happiness. Barris vehemently denies this, her expression suddenly sharp and defensive. In a flashback, a younger Barris confronts her father, demanding an explanation. Her father, the Demon Lord, greets her warmly, saying he was about to call her. He acknowledges that she is a scholar, not a warrior, and the quest will fail. He gently pats her head, his expression full of paternal affection. The Demon Lord explains that he knows this path is better suited for her. It confused young Barris asks why he would set her up for failure. Her father reveals his true intent, for her to become a witness and observer. He looks at her knowingly, trusting his wise daughter to understand his plan. The realization dawns on her face as she whispers a single word. She understands that if she fails, she will finally be free. Still, she questions if this is truly all right, looking at her father with uncertainty. Her father looks back at her with a gentle, loving smile. He explains that the Belial throne values strength far more than bloodline. In a memory, he shows her the political reality of their court. Barris remembers her brutish, ambitious uncle with a look of unease. Her uncle declares he won't accept a weaker successor, his gaze menacing. He touches her face, calling her his cute Barris with chilling intent. Her father pulls her into a hug, wishing for her to fly free. Back in the present, Barris weeps softly at the bittersweet memory. She sobs that he was a good father, as Gon gently comforts her. Linus asks if her uncle is now ruling the country in her stead. She explains her uncle is boisterous, but not one to needlessly invade others. Linus smiles in relief, glad to have left the Demon Lord title behind. Barris is stunned, realizing with a jolt that he was a former Demon Lord. Linus clarifies he was just a normal human working as a barrier master. Errol, the elf woman, listens to his shocking confession in silence. He asks Barris what she plans to do now that she has her freedom. Barris's face lights up, surprised by the unexpected question. Linus smiles, genuinely curious about what she wants for her future. He asks Barris what she wants to do from this point on. Her eyes sparkle as she declares her wish to travel and meet new people. Her excitement fades as she realizes she has no money for a journey. Linus reassures her, offering her a room and work at his home. He muses that tying her down might be a bad idea. Barris blushes, considering his generous and unexpected offer. He asks if she can use magic and a sword, which she confirms. Linus finds her answer satisfactory, and Gon nuzzles his cheek approvingly. The horn girl, Barris, earnestly recalls Linus's role as a barrier master. He suggests she could help him while slowly exploring the world. Linus offers her the freedom to leave once she is self-sufficient. He smiles, formally asking if she will assist with his work. Blushing and overwhelmed, she stares back at him in silent agreement. Before the Grand Mansion, Barris joyfully agrees to be in his care. Gon welcomes her cheerfully as Barris shows concern for her new master. From behind, Barris startles a flustered Linos, who admits he's alone. Barris declares her intent to learn cooking, remembering her father's words. He glances back, surprised by her sudden desire to learn domestic skills. Linos reassures her that with her skills, she will thrive anywhere. Overcome with joy, she beams, her face lit with a radiant smile. In a lavish room, a weary blonde woman lies in her bed. Her tired eyes reveal she has suffered another sleepless night. She worries that soon she may lose the ability to sleep entirely. A maid enters, announcing that the princess is awake. The princess forces a smile, insisting she is fine despite her pallor. Her maid Quena questions if she will truly attend the meeting. The princess dismisses the idea that a woman cannot participate. She believes there are critical matters that only she can resolve. Quena expresses her concern for the princess's devotion to the empire. The princess smiles gratefully as Quena applies rouge to her cheeks. Quena informs her that her father's condition is not good. A maid bursts in, revealing the emperor drank alcohol instead of eating. Ricolette composes herself, ready for the difficult council meeting ahead. The imposing emperor stands ready, his expression grim and resolute. He prepares to decide the very future of the nation's defense. The meeting is a critical one that will sway the empire's fate. The anxious crown Prince Heath darts nervous glances around the room. The first imperial princess Ricolette watches with a focused gaze. The emperor, flanked by his children, declares the council has begun. The second in line, Prince Vilas, remains cool and unreadable. A bald, spectacled prime minister begins to deliver his formal report. He prepares to compare the new intelligence with previous findings. Council members erupt in a panic, shouting fragmented reports. They frantically discuss a recent demon attack near the capital. The room descends into a chaotic cacophony of fear and argument. One man reports hearing of a demon attack near the border. The emperor smirks, revealing he already received a report. He dismisses the demon's connection to the main horde as weak. He has already ordered the situation to be handled and reported on. Breathing heavily, he seems to be struggling with his own agitation. He turns on Ricolette, coldly asking why she is staring at him. He scathingly asks why Heath is unaware of these developments. The emperor mocks Heath for drinking wine to feign composure. His sharp eyes betray no sign of an impending invasion. He reminds his terrified son that he is the next emperor. The emperor leans in, demanding to know what Heath was about to say. The prince is frozen with fear, unable to speak. The prime minister tries to steer the topic to national defense taxes. The emperor scoffs, declaring they will take what they need by force. Ricolette looks on in disbelief, her brother equally stunned. With a sharp crack, she slams her hand down on the table. She shouts her dissent at her father's tyrannical declaration. The emperor turns on her, his voice a low growl of warning. He coldly tells her not to interfere with the proceedings. Ricolette stares back, shocked and hurt by his command. Prince Vilas reveals he has already been coordinating with the military. Ricolette tries to protest, but her father silences her. The emperor states he is acting on reports from a source named Juka. He rises, declaring that only he can make this decision. He asks his sons if they understand he alone can bring stability. He resolves that he cannot allow the nation to fall into chaos. With fierce resolve, he declares he must protect the people. He turns to Ricolette, asking if she understands her place. She wonders if he still has any fatherly feelings for her. He states that her mere presence at the meeting is a concession. Her existence, he declares, is now too dangerous for the empire. With cold finality, he orders her to leave the council. Heartbroken, she can only whisper his name in disbelief. He asks if she is defying a direct imperial order. Defeated, she bows her head and apologizes. She turns and flees the grand hall in disgrace. As she goes, she presses her hands to her face to stifle her sobs. The scene cuts away from the oppressive castle. Far below, the bustling streets of the town offer a stark contrast. The cheerful horn girl, Barris, begs Lenos to buy her a scarf. Lenos struggles under a mountain of packages, asking if she's done. Barris gives a thumbs up, justifying the spending for their guild. He looks at a piece of clothing she hands him, confused. A blonde elf, Errol notes Lenos seems deep in thought. He suggests they abandon shopping and visit a cafeteria he knows. Barris is overjoyed, shouting her approval of the new plan. They arrive to find the restaurant's doors are unexpectedly closed. Lenos is confused, certain it should be open at this hour. The proprietress peeks out, recognizing Lenos with a smile. She apologizes, explaining they are closed due to some commotion. Her expression suddenly brightens as she remembers the reason. She excitedly informs Lenos that the slave market is in town. She explains it's due to a severe labor shortage in the area. She mentions some good-looking children are for sale who might be useful. The proprietress suggests he might find a good deal there. The mention of slavery triggers a painful memory for Lenos. Barris, sensing his sudden change in mood, asks what is wrong. He forces a smile, dismissing her concern with a stammer. He puts a thoughtful hand to his chin, a new plan forming. With quiet resolve, he announces they are going to the slave market. He and Barris run through the streets, their expressions serious. Barris asks if Linus is a slave, which he quickly denies. His eyes flash with purpose as he clarifies he is a former slave. Haunted by his past, a young man reflects on his time as a slave. This memory fuels his firm resolve to take action and help others. He and his companions hurry through a city street, a sense of urgency propelling them. The girl with him, Barris, suddenly recognizes a familiar figure in an archway. The woman, an innkeeper, asks if they have also come to purchase a slave. The young man, Linos, is visibly startled by her blunt question. Inside a grand hall, an auctioneer calls out a high price for a man in chains. The innkeeper explains the bidding process to a bewildered Linos. He observes that only the criminal slaves seem to be left for sale. The woman details the grim fate of these criminals, forced into harsh labor. His elf-like companion, Errol, worries about what happens if no one buys them. The innkeeper reveals the grim truth that most unsold slaves are simply disposed of. Errol whispers the terrible word in horror, the finality of their situation clear. She leans in, reminding Linos that preventing this is why they came. Barris's determined smile shows her wholehearted agreement with their mission. The final slave of the day is brought out, a horned woman, with the bidding at 5,000 G. The crowd looks on with general disinterest, their faces impassive. Linus asks the innkeeper about the girl currently on the auction block. The innkeeper whispers that the girl is cursed, which is why she won't sell. On stage, the horned woman, Marias, wears an expression of deep, resigned sadness. The innkeeper explains that the curse is extremely heavy, causing her to be shunned. Desperate, the auctioneer drops the price to a mere 500 guineas, pleading for any bid. With a confident, determined grin, Linos raises his bidding paddle high. He declares with certainty that he will purchase her for the rock-bottom price. As he holds up his paddle, he is startled by a sudden, loud commotion outside. A knight in full armor storms in, ordering the immediate dissolution of the market. The auctioneer is shocked as Linos realizes his successful bid has been nullified. After the raid, the door to a private room opens, the chaos having subsided. Barris expresses her shock at how suddenly the Imperial soldiers had burst in. The innkeeper identifies the soldiers as belonging to Empress Ricolette, who ruined everything. She sighs, lamenting the loss of a convenient source of cheap labor. Lenas, however, smiles with relief, glad they could complete their transaction anyway. Marius, now his property, looks on with a bewildered and uncertain expression. With the chaos of a raid settling, an auctioneer formally permits a single transaction to proceed. The young buyer, Linos, holds a strange vial containing a single potent drop. He turns to the horned woman, Marius, instructing her to present her hand. Linos explains that this contract is sealed with blood, not a curse. A glowing magical seal forms on her hand as the drop makes contact. The auctioneer beams, announcing that the contract has been successfully completed. Linos immediately inquires about the possibility of dissolving the very contract he just made. A shocked auctioneer asks if Linos is unable to break it himself. Linos clarifies, asking if her status as a criminal slave can be undone. Marius looks on in disbelief, questioning his intent to free a criminal. The flustered official admits that such a thing is possible, but difficult. He explains it requires the master's death or permission from a divine officer. Linos confirms that he is indeed asking about the divine officer's permission. The official warns it is nearly impossible, as her crimes must be acknowledged. Marius interjects, confessing she killed many with poison, making it unthinkable. The nervous auctioneer departs, urging Linos to be extremely careful with her. A small sound of surprise escapes Marius as a new person approaches. The girl with twin tails reassures her that the scary man has now left. Linos and his companions welcome Marius, asking for her name now that she's with them. He asks if she had a name she used before becoming a slave. After a thoughtful pause, she quietly offers the name May. Linos thoughtfully expands on her suggestion, christening her Marius. He smiles brightly, pleased with the new name he has given her. His companions announce they are hungry, suggesting they all visit a favorite restaurant. The twin-tailed girl enthusiastically agrees, ignoring the fox creature's playful protest. Inside the restaurant, Linos asks why Marius is still standing away from the table. She protests that as a slave, she cannot share a meal with them. Linos realizes his actions have likely drawn the attention of the Empress. A regal blonde woman, Empress Ricolette, arrives with a stern-faced attendant. Linos acknowledges that the order to shut down the market was Ricolette's. He expresses his agreement that the act of buying people is fundamentally wrong. His gaze sharpens as he wonders how the palace knew about the market. Ricolet's attendant smiles, admitting to his mistress that he was the informant. A man with light hair smiles, musing about military personnel being in the city. Empress Ricolet is informed by a retainer about an important new development. Hearing the news, her expression becomes stern and filled with disdain. She expresses her disgust at the very idea of buying people with money. Ricolet directly confronts Linus, pointing out he just purchased the horned woman, Miraius. Linus calmly looks back, confirming that her observation is entirely correct. She explains her desire to free Miraius, but her status as a criminal slave complicates things. Linus's companion Barris cries out in shock upon hearing the term criminal slave. Ricolet clenches her fists, admitting how deeply unsettling she finds the practice of slavery. Linus agrees with her, adding that for a slave, even breathing is terrifying. His profound understanding of a slave's suffering leaves Ricolet momentarily speechless. With a sad smile, Linus reveals that he too is a former slave. With the tense confrontation over, Linus suggests they depart in a waiting carriage. Inside, he gazes out the window, reflecting that he doesn't disagree with the Empress's views. Barris playfully teases him for being so serious, and he laughs warmly in response. Miraius stands awkwardly, apologizing for being a bother to them. Linus reassures her not to worry and gently encourages her to take a seat. He hands her a menu, telling her that all the food is delicious. Barris eagerly joins Miraius, and they look over the menu together. Miraius timidly addresses Linus, her expression filled with a hesitant question. She asks why he would show such kindness to a fallen criminal slave like her. He explains it's because he was also a cursed slave, and her situation resonated with him. Ricolet, listening intently, asks if the merchant mentioned any other details about her crime. Linus looks on, sensing there is more to the story than has been revealed. At the mention of her past, Miraius is suddenly overcome with emotion, tears welling. She covers her mouth, explaining through sobs that no one has ever listened before. Barris is startled by Miraius' sudden and intense emotional outburst. Linus understands her reaction, noting the noisy restaurant is a good place for a private talk. With a warm smile, he decides they should all eat first before any serious discussion. A cheerful waitress arrives, presenting a steaming platter of food to their table. Miraius stares at the warm dango, her expression one of pure wonder and disbelief. Linus quietly tells Barris to let Miraius savor the taste of the food. Tears of joy stream down Marius's face as she thanks them for the warm meal. A young man and a woman share a moment of bliss, their fox companion grinning happily behind them. As Miraius eats, Linus gently tells her that she can listen to him. He reassures her that he knows how to break the curse, but freeing her from her criminal slave status will be difficult. Barris cheers, delighted that as Miraius' new master, Linus will have her live with them. Linus's expression turns serious as he explains that to break the curse, he must delve into her past. He looks at her intently, asking if she is truly all right with him uncovering her history. Looking down at her feet, Miraius quietly agrees to his difficult condition. She then raises her head, her face resolute, and confirms that she is okay with it. With a gentle smile, Linus thanks her for her trust and cooperation. He apologizes for bringing up such a heavy topic before their meal, but she dismisses his concern. As Barris doodles, Linus makes one last, important request of Miraius. With sincere kindness, he asks her to try to forget her status as a slave and be honest about her feelings. He acknowledges that it will be difficult, so she can take it slow. He pauses for a moment, thinking of the most important thing he wants to convey. A memory of his own found family flashes through his mind as he continues. With a brilliant, wide grin, he declares he just wants her to be healthy and live a long life. Barris and Gon cheer enthusiastically, welcoming her to their home. A surprised Miraius asks about their other companion, Irimo. With mischievous grins, Linus and Barris explain that their home is a very lively place. The fox creature, Gon, excitedly declares that it's a talking fox and has more to reveal. Barris proudly introduces herself as the former princess of the Burial clan. Linus adds that Irimo is a rare unicorn Pegasus and a very good friendly child. Miraius is completely stunned by the extraordinary nature of her new companions, while Barris laughs. The initial shock gives way to a small, shy laugh from Miraius. Seated at a table, Miraius beams, stating she looks forward to being in their care. They arrive at a grand mansion set within a lush, green landscape. Inside the magnificent foyer, Miraius stares in awe as Linus informs her this is her new home. He points upstairs, offering her a choice of 2 empty guest rooms. Barris cheerfully suggests they could share a room, an idea Miraius seems to like. Linus explains he must go to the capital for necessities, thanking her for her help. He peeks around a corner, his demeanor shifting to become more serious. With a grave expression, he gestures for Miraius to sit down in the formal room. Across the table, she looks back at him with a tense, uncertain expression. He asks her to tell him if there are any errors in the story of how she became a criminal slave. With a look of stunned gratitude, Marius expresses how thankful she is for his kindness. Her expression turns to one of deep sorrow as she confesses to killing many people. Now freed from her curse, she reveals her intention to continue living on shamelessly. Linos listens to her confession, his own face shadowed with a pained, empathetic expression. Covering his face, he admits that he has endured a similar, soul-crushing experience himself. He recalls being taught that one must sometimes live without shame for their family's sake. A memory of Gon teaching him this lesson brings a faint, knowing smile to his face. He then gently asks Marius if she has anyone important to her in her life. While serving tea, Marius quietly reveals that her parents are no longer with her. A bead of sweat on his face, Linos asks if her crime is related to them. Marius confirms this, her story beginning with a fond memory of her loving parents. She recalls studying diligently, determined to one day take over the family business. Her parents are shown joyfully supporting her efforts as she learned their trade. She remembers her childhood as a happy, gentle, and fulfilling time with her family. Her story takes a dark turn as she explains a terrible plague spread through her country. The disease was highly infectious and incurable, leaving many dead in the streets. Facing national collapse, the king issued a desperate decree for a special cure. Her pharmacist mother was tasked with this, working tirelessly day and night. Moved by her parents' desperation, a young Marius ventured into the woods for ingredients. It was during this desperate time that she encountered a mysterious, hooded magician. The magician approached her, noting how rare it was to meet someone gathering herbs. Marius reflects that her life would be different had she not met him that day. He offered her a rare, beautiful herb, suggesting it might be the key to a cure. With manic hope, she accepted the strange herb and gave it to her parents. Linus asks if it is common for such a rare herb to suddenly change. With a sad shake of her head, Marius denies this possibility. Linus, with Gon peeking from behind, speculates that the magician used illusion magic. She confirms this, explaining her parents would not have accepted an unknown ingredient otherwise. Believing they had succeeded, her parents proudly reported the new cure to the king. The herb was actually a forbidden poison, its collection banned by the state. As a result, they were arrested for creating a poison that took many lives. She reveals the herb's appearance change, proving their work was an illusion. Linos asks if her world has no antidotes, before questioning her becoming a slave. Marius explains her parents were executed, but she was spared because she was a minor. Consequently, she was forced into servitude, becoming a court magician for the state. With a pained expression, she recalls being commanded to create whatever was demanded. Her forced work included forging hard armaments and developing dangerous, performance-enhancing drugs. Linos asks if she completed these tasks, and she admits she only made some progress. As the demands grew more complex, she eventually reached the limits of her abilities. Her face fills with horror as she reveals that the drugs were left unfinished. A memory flashes of a soldier screaming as she explains the drug's terrible side effects. Despite the life-threatening danger, the unstable concoction was used on soldiers anyway. Overwhelmed with guilt, Marius cries out, terrified by how many lives were lost. Linos watches her breakdown, his expression a mask of shock and deep concern. Marius explains that after this, she was too consumed by guilt to continue her work. Linos pieces the rest together, concluding she was then sold at a slave auction. With a downcast gaze, Marius quietly confirms that this is what happened to her. He questions the logic of selling her, speculating it was a political ploy. Marius looks up surprised, considering if they wanted to place her in a cruel environment. He wonders if it was a scheme to leak her dangerous research to other nations. She admits his theory seems plausible, a new, troubling understanding dawning on her. Linos and his companion Gon look thoughtful, pondering the complex conspiracy. He shakes his head in frustration, abandoning his theories for the moment. He admits he has no idea what their motives were and tells her not to worry. Turning to Gon, Linos asks if it can break her curse. Gon enthusiastically agrees. He looks at Marius, telling her that she did not kill those people intentionally. He explains that she and her parents were used by the manipulative court magician. He reminds her that she recognized the danger and destroyed the unfinished drug. He believes that single act of defiance is enough justification to break her curse. Linos acknowledges that her status as a criminal slave will remain, scratching his head. He passionately declares he wants to break her curse to give her more future choices. His expression softens as he admits he just wants to make things easier for her. He asks if she will listen to his selfish request, her expression one of shocked disbelief. Gon bluntly states her life can't get any worse, urging her to trust him. Linos holds out both hands, gently telling her he's going to break the curse. Marius looks at his outstretched hands, a single tear of gratitude falling from her eye. Overwhelmed with emotion, the horned woman gives a tearful, "Yes," gripping the hand that holds hers. Holding her hands, Renosu tells a flustered Marius that she doesn't need to grip so tightly. A distressed Barisu apologizes profusely while Renosu and Gon look on with confusion. Gon places its small paws into Renosu's hands, preparing to begin the ritual. A gentle, ethereal light envelops Marius as she drifts into a serene state. With her eyes closed, Marius's face shows pure relief as the curse finally lifts. Barisu cheers that everything is all right now, and Marius offers her heartfelt thanks. Renosu turns to Gon, asking what is wrong, sensing a problem. Gon announces that while the curse is broken, a strange, lingering presence remains. It explains that its own power is insufficient to deal with this final remnant. Gon advises that for this matter, they must consult the powerful Ohime-sama, the princess. Barisu apologizes for the added trouble, but Renosu cheerfully says he is curious. With a friendly smile, Renosu suggests that they should all rest for the day. Suddenly, Renosu and Marius look up in alarm, sensing an imminent danger. Renosu recognizes the frantic voice of Irimo, wondering how it pierced his barrier. He calls out to Barisu, who is outside, and she insists that she is fine. Looking outside with frantic urgency, Renosu shouts for his Pegasus, Irimo. A large cloaked figure with a smug smile emerges, remarking that Marius is still alive. Marius stares in horror, recognizing her former teacher, while Renosu demands to know who it is. The imposing cat-like creature complains that their survival has caused a great deal of trouble. Renosu's face hardens with fury as he identifies the creature as Marius's slaver. With a smug grin, the creature confirms it was indeed the one who sold her. The creature, Porsehai, greets Marius casually, stating that its plans have gone awry. A small rabbit-like attendant introduces its master, Porsehai, of a formidable clan. Porsehai explains that its clan's illusion magic makes the boundary of reality complex. Renosu questions if Porsehai was the one who forced Marius into her terrible work. Porsehai mockingly asks if that's why Marius called it sensei, twisting the knife. Marius looks away in shame, murmuring about the things they discussed in their short time. Renosu places a hand on her shoulder, vowing to handle this troublesome situation. He provocatively suggests that Porsehai should teach him a few things. Feigning fear, he holds out a trembling hand, sarcastically calling her a souvenir. Porsehai snaps back, annoyed by his insolence, declaring that this is the real pain. Veins bulge on the back of Porsehai's hand as its composure finally cracks. Marius watches the tense exchange, her expression filled with confusion and worry. Falling for the goad, Porsehai yells in frustration, demanding to know what he wants. Renosu's demeanor turns serious as he asks why they used Marius's unfinished drug. Porsehai explains with glee that killing people purifies the cursed items they create. They recount their plan to create an immortal army before Marius became useless. Renosu presses further, asking why they made her a slave instead of just killing her. Porsehai laughs cruelly, admitting they figured she would die and wanted one last use. Renosu asks what kind of use she could have, seeking to understand the plot. They reveal their ambition to sell her to an imperial noble to gain political leverage. Renosu asks in disgust how they could create something so monstrous. With manic glee, Porsehai wonders if he wouldn't also want to rule the continent. Their rant intensifies, blaming another man for foiling their carefully laid auction plan. Porsehai vows to take everything from Renosu so Marius can be raised to be sold. Marius looks up, realizing with dawning horror that Porsehai shouldn't have known about the drug. The small attendant asks if this means Marius was tricked into using the drug. Porsehai leans in, mockingly asking if she truly didn't notice, and tells her to look. They ask if she recognizes the person in the vision they are about to show her. A puff of smoke accompanies the illusion, revealing a scene from the past. The vision shows a kind, hooded figure with a beautiful yet deceptive smile. In the memory, the figure offers a younger Marius a medicinal herb, promising its use. The figure's face contorts into a manic grin as it offers to share the herb. The full weight of the deception hits Marius, and she lets out a gut-wrenching scream. Porsehai gloats, confirming they knew everything, and were shocked by her trickery. Marius realizes with horror that her one act of rebellion was completely meaningless. Sobbing, she wonders if her dull-wittedness means she'll just be sold again. Porsehai unleashes a torrent of dark energy, commanding it to destroy the brats. Renosu grunts in pain as he braces himself, taking the full force of the attack. He erects a shimmering barrier, asking a shocked Marius if she is all right. Porsehai steps through the barrier, musing that even with protection, they will all die. Renosu is shocked as Porsehai appears behind him, taunting his futile effort. He staggers, exclaiming in disbelief that Porsehai slipped through his barrier. The attendant explains that its master is mixing illusion magic with their attacks. Porsehai dismisses him as a real pain, asking if that's all he can do. They question the point of containment if he cannot break their illusion. Renosu wonders how they passed through, questioning if it was illusion magic. Porsehai reveals it was a costly teleportation spell, noting their weakness to spatial magic. They declare their intent to drain Renosu's magic to prevent Marius from escaping. Renosu presses his hands to the ground, beginning a powerful counterspell. Porsehai sniffs the air curiously, wondering what the strange new smell is. They scoff, asking if he's trying a sleep spell, which is useless against their clan. Renosu smirks, apologizing for not meeting their expectations. The small attendant looks on, a knowing sound escaping its lips. Porsehai's form begins to writhe and distort in agony. Giant, horrifying centipedes burst from the soil, causing Porsehai to shriek in terror. Renosu calmly explains that they are in a deep forest where many creatures reside. He reveals the scent he released is the favorite food of the forest's flesh-eating insects. He tells Marius they should retreat before they become the insect's next meal. His vision clears as he realizes the illusory flames are gone and his mind is his own. Porsehai screams for the insects to stay away as they swarm relentlessly. Marius can only watch the gruesome scene, her face a mask of shock. Renosu acknowledges to himself that he too has a way of fighting dirty with magic. He gently tells Marius not to blame herself more than necessary for what happened. Marius looks at him, tears welling in her eyes, overwhelmed by his kindness. They stand over Porsehai's mangled remains as Renosu asks what's wrong. Porsehai, barely alive, mutters that they were so sure they had won. With their last breath, they whisper Marius' name, attempting a final illusion. Renosu grabs Marius, pulling her into a protective embrace, shouting for her to be careful. The final spell fizzles as Porsehai collapses, their body falling limp to the ground. The once feared antagonist lies dead, a broken heap in the dirt. In the quiet aftermath, Marius thanks Renosu for eliminating the insects and saving her. She quietly agrees with his assessment of the situation, her voice trembling. Renosu looks at her, murmuring her name thoughtfully in the silence. He tells her he won't ask her to forget what happened, knowing she probably can't. He declares that no one is left to make her unhappy or stop her from finding happiness. At the gravesite, he promises that he and their friends will help her find happiness. A memory of her smiling parents surfaces, who believed she couldn't be happy if they weren't at peace. Marius looks up, her expression filled with a profound, unspoken sorrow. Overwhelmed by this act of grace, tears of grief and gratitude stream down her face. In a forest clearing, Renosu asks Mariasu if Porsehai's sword wasn't buried too. She explains that she created the sword, burying it because it was too dangerous. The unsheathed blade, she reveals, was taken before she could make a scabbard. It was designed to grow stronger by absorbing magic, making it unfit for military use. Mariasu notes the thief lacked a place filled with enough magic to wield it. Listening intently to her story, Renosu's expression becomes thoughtful and serious. With fierce determination, he firmly grips the hilt of the powerful, volatile sword. He insists on helping, reassuring a concerned Mariasu that he can handle the risk. Recalling being called a magic monster, he expresses confidence in his immense power. With a warm smile, he vows that he will not let his companions disappear. Mariasu looks up at him, her eyes wide as she quietly agrees to his plan. Grasping the hilt, he begins channeling his magic, startling Mariasu beside him. He feels a significant amount of his magical energy being siphoned into the blade. Feeling the drain on her own power, Mariasu winces and asks him to stop. Gazing at the blade, she whispers in awe that it has become beautiful. Renosu stares in shock as a luminous, intricate pattern appears on the sword. He sheepishly admits he might have overdone it, asking her to hold his shoulder. Walking together, she remarks with a smile on his seemingly endless magical power. He looks at her, saying that despite his power, there is still something more. Renosu holds the sword with her, expressing a prayer that it's never needed. Her eyes soften as she looks at him, agreeing with his heartfelt wish. He suggests they eat, and she happily declares that she is hungry as well. In a bustling town with charming architecture, Renosu cheerfully calls out to his companions. Barisu encourages Mariasu to shop, while Renosu assures her that it is fine. The energetic Barisu tells a shy Mariasu she's been looking forward to this. Overwhelmed and embarrassed by the attention, Mariasu hides her face in a fluffy scarf. Renosu gently tells her there's no need to discuss her difficult past anymore. With a kind smile, he reveals that he knows she was a slave, just like him. His confession surprises her, and Barasu happily welcomes her into their group. Mariasu models a daring new outfit, looking both embarrassed and pleased with the look. Renosu and Gon give her an enthusiastic thumbs up, enjoying the impromptu fashion show. Carrying their many purchases, he smiles as Mariasu apologizes for the trouble. While washing the sword by a stream, he asks if she needs anything else. At the end, Barris explains that the guest room's pillow and bed were unsuitable. Mirius elaborates that her horns make sleeping in human beds difficult, requiring many pillows. An innkeeper shows them a special bed without a headboard, designed for the horned race. With their shopping done, Linos and his happy companions walk through the town market. A contented Marias compliments Barris, telling her the food is truly delicious. At a lively butcher shop, the group orders their usual from the friendly owner. A mysterious cloaked figure observes the group, noting how lively they are as they shop. With the meal finished, a clean plate is set down with thanks for the food. At their table, Maris thanks Barris for yet another incredibly delicious and wonderful meal. A beaming Barris expresses her joy, saying she loves hearing Marias's daily compliments. Marius explains with a happy expression that the food tastes so good because it's authentic. An excited Barris promises there will be many more delicious meals for them to enjoy. At Linos' suggestion, a shy but happy Marius agrees to try on new clothes. Linos smiles and asks Marius for her opinion on the new clothes she's wearing. Striking a happy pose, Marius exclaims that her new athletic outfit is very comfortable. She smiles gratefully, glad she was allowed to choose clothes that are easy to move in. By a stream, Linus explains that he doesn't want a master-servant relationship with them. He clarifies that he instead considers them to be his companions and equals. He hopes they will all rely on each other, just as true companions should. Barris is startled as she notices that Marius has suddenly started to cry. Overwhelmed with emotion, Maria sobs with joy, thanking him and saying she's so happy. Barris jokingly blames Linos for Marius's tears, while he asks if it was his fault. Now composed, Marius tells Linos she has a gift for him after she finishes washing. She presents the completed sword and scabbard, though she feels its finish is simple. In their room, Linos mentions the sword's nature seems to have changed with his magic. Holding the patterned blade, he senses a divine power that makes it feel sharper. Barris gazes at the sword, her eyes wide with sparkling, speechless wonder. Barris worries the sword might awaken an evil spirit, a concern Linos thoughtfully considers. He asks Marius if she felt anything unpleasant while she was completing the weapon. Barris reacts with surprise, questioning whether he should use the powerful sword or not. Marius confidently states that as long as her intentions are clear, everything will be fine. A relieved Linos smiles gently, agreeing with her heartfelt and confident assessment. He suggests they travel to the capital for her research supplies, a surprising offer. With a bright smile, the horned girl Barris tells the surprised Marius that she too wants to go shopping in the capital. Linos, with his fox familiar Gon on his shoulder, is addressed as master by his enthusiastic companions. Looking at Marius, Linos decides they will go tomorrow to ask a powerful being about the strange aura he senses. Remembering his mission, Linos reminds Gon that they must not forget to bring souvenirs. Their journey takes them to a serene, traditional Japanese shrine, surrounded by a dense bamboo forest. Linos explains the situation to Gon, who listens with a concerned expression on his face. Kneeling before a massive fox spirit, Linos states his desire to know the truth about Marius. Linos cheerfully admits that even he doesn't understand the Moya Moya, which is why he came. The great fox spirit, Ohim-sama, lets out a thoughtful sound considering his request. With a powerful cry, the spirit begins its mystical examination of the distant girl. A vision of a startled Marius appears, showing the spirit's power reaching her from afar. Linos explains with a wide grin that he received the information using Gon as a medium. The spirit reveals the Moya Moya's true nature is a formidable power of self-destruction. Linos asked for clarification on the term used for this kind of latent ability. Ohim-sama explains it as a power that talented individuals subconsciously hide to suppress their own growth. The spirit observes that to release the power, Marius must overcome her deep-seated self-denial. Linos understands that because it is a matter of her heart, resolving it will be difficult. He realizes this might be even harder than freeing her from her criminal slave status. The Great Spirit thanks Linos for his help, and he humbly insists it was nothing. Ohim-sama tells him to rely on her, addressing him directly as Linos. The spirit explains that the teleportation magic he witnessed is an application of barrier arts. Linos is stunned, realizing the barrier magic he used to arrive was part of this power. He asks how to form the spell, wondering about the specific incantation he needs to use. The panel repeats the visual of him asking how to perform the complex spell. Ohami-sama clarifies that he simply needs to chant the incantation to understand its power. The spirit elaborates on the teleportation method, which involves chanting and focusing on a destination. Gon adds a crucial detail. The teleportation only works for places Linos has already visited. Overwhelmed by this new knowledge, Linos marvels at the incredible power he has received. The spirit smiles, stating he has been given what he needs and to bring more souvenirs. Linos beams, promising to bring plenty more next time he comes to visit. The scene shifts to a magnificent, sprawling castle with countless towers under a darkening sky. An opulent hall within the castle is shown, its high ceiling decorated with intricate coffers. Inside a lamplit room, the noblewoman Ricolette tells her attendant she senses a commotion outside. A tearful maid shatters the calm, bursting in and desperately calling for Ricolette-sama. A maid apologizes profusely for the late-night intrusion into the young noblewoman's chambers. Ricolette, the noblewoman, dismisses the apology, urgently asking what has happened. The maid delivers alarming news about His Majesty's grave condition, shocking Ricolette. Shuta, a military officer, watches the scene unfold from behind with a sharp, calculating gaze. With her mistress distraught, the maid urges her to go to the king's side immediately. Remaining in the grand hall, Shuta stands as a silent and imposing figure. A sharp, intense voice suddenly calls out Shuta's name from off-panel. A woman named Kurumfal appears, wryly commenting on Shuta's suspiciously quick arrival. Her face etched with distress, Kurumfal looks utterly panicked by the unfolding situation. As Kurumfal whispers frantically, Shuta calmly puts a finger to his lips, silencing her. He quietly leads her away, warning that they must be careful not to be overheard. A heavy door swings shut, securing their secretive conversation from any prying ears. Kurumfal looks to Shuta in a panic, desperately asking what they should do now. Shuta smirks confidently, admitting this was an unexpected development he had not anticipated. His expression hardens with resolve as he states they must act quickly. The chilling implication of his words leaves Ricolette frozen in utter shock and horror. Alone in her room, the pensive Ricolette is lost in troubled, sorrowful thought. A maid explains she was unable to grant Ricolette an audience with the king. With a sad smile, Ricolette thanks the maid for at least informing her of her father's will. Gazing out, she wonders aloud if her fate would be different had she been born a man. She muses that her outspoken nature might have granted her an audience with her father. Her wistful speculation trails off into a moment of quiet, sorrowful contemplation. The maid offers a pot of tea, gently suggesting her mistress warm herself. Lost in her sorrowful thoughts, Ricolette seems barely aware of the kind gesture. Her somber reverie is shattered as her head snaps up in sudden alarm. Shuta and Kurumfal enter the room, formally apologizing for their late-night intrusion. Ricolette looks upon her visitors with a distant, weary, and unwelcoming expression. She coldly informs them that she did not send for them at this hour. Her composure breaks as she desperately asks how long she must wait to see her father. Shuta calmly informs her that her turn to see the king is next. She screams in frustration, shouting that she is already aware of this fact. Her shoulders slump in defeat as she quietly offers a sincere apology for her behavior. Kurumfal reveals that the prime minister is conveying the king's last will. A young woman gently holds an older man's hand, pleading for a moment to apologize. In a painful memory, she sits by his bedside wishing to confess her love. Now alone in a vast hall, she whispers her father's name in profound sorrow. Her red-haired retainer Shuta addresses her formally as princess, interrupting her grief. He acknowledges her impatience, but insists there are things they must do before anything else. With grave urgency, he explains that her father's deposition is now just a matter of time. Before that happens, he declares, they must take action and purge her enemies. She looks at him bewildered as he confirms they must make their move now. He warns that once the emperor abdicates, she will almost certainly lose her position. Horrified, she struggles to comprehend what he is saying, her expression one of disbelief. A minister explains that once Prince Heath takes the throne, she will be punished. A dark-haired woman adds that without her father's protection, the princess will lose her voice. Her supporters will be scattered, and she will be condemned to a life of palace isolation. The woman laments that they should have allied with Prince Heath sooner, but were prevented. She reveals they were forbidden from contacting him by the princess's own permission. Shuta reveals the true mastermind behind her targeting is the sinister Prime Minister Grimont. The princess protests, confused, stating that the Prime Minister serves the emperor. Her gaze fills with a dawning suspicion as she processes the shocking accusation. Shuta smiles knowingly, asking if she has finally noticed the truth of the situation. He reveals Grimont's true ambition is to place Prince Vilas on the throne. Stunned, the princess demands proof that the prime minister would dare such a thing. Shuta's grim silence is all the confirmation she needs, his expression unwavering. He asks how she perceives the current situation, with the prime minister aiming for the throne. He declares their only option is to eliminate those who would obstruct the new emperor. Horrified, the princess realizes the terrible weight of the choice being forced upon her. Shuta passionately insists that he and her other allies know she loves her country. He formally thanks her for her dedication, addressing her respectfully as princess. The dark-haired woman adds that her governess, Kurumfal, is also pained by this predicament. Shuta argues that the future she wants and the emperor's path are now diverging. She looks on, her eyes wide with torment as the terrible reality sinks in. He describes her ideal nation, free from weak nobles and full of opportunity for all. She whispers the word purge, questioning if that is truly the only path forward. The minister confirms Prince Heath would inevitably become the prime minister's puppet. A man with reddish-brown hair, Shuta, regards the scene with a grim, determined expression. With a look of shock, the blonde Ricolette pleads that helping His Majesty will better the country. Speechless and horrified, Ricolette stares ahead, unable to process the dire situation. The dark-haired lady-in-waiting, Kurumfal, hears a knock at the door with a worried look. Another maid arrives, asking Kurumfal what's wrong and mentioning a summons for an audience. The maids look on in distress as a pale, lifeless Ricolette learns of the emperor's death. Later in her chambers, Ricolette sits on the floor, dazed and lost in grief. Her maids try to comfort her, but Kurumfal steps in, asserting she will handle things. Shuta bursts in, grabbing Ricolette and urgently telling her they are out of time. Kneeling before her, Shuta presents an official document, urging the princess to sign it. Ricolette looks on in horror, realizing the document is an order for a political purge. The ornate folder reveals the official order, its intimidating text filling the entire page. Shuta explains it is a temporary elimination of enemies, not a bloody coup. Kurumfal asks if the distressed Ricolette will consent to their desperate plan. Kurumfal adds her support, stating she is also in favor of the proposal. Embracing the princess, Kurumfal pleads that all her hard work must not be wasted. She begs Ricolette to save the oppressed people of the empire for the future. Shuta and Kurumfal watch with intense expectation as Ricolette prepares to sign the document. With anguish and resolve in her eyes, Ricolette makes her monumental decision. In a flashback, her retainers call her name during that moment of immense pressure. Her thoughts turn to her father, the late emperor, whose memory hangs over her. She cries out, declaring that she cannot possibly do what is being asked of her. With her father just gone, she refuses to throw the empire into chaos. Shuta listens to her passionate refusal with a calm, unreadable expression. His face softens into a gentle smile, telling her she is just as he thought. He then presents a different document, explaining it's not the same order. Instead, he asks her to sign a simple permit for her own protection. She quietly agrees, understanding the logic of the protective measure. Shuta explains it will allow him to rush to her side if danger arises. Convinced by his reasoning, Ricolette says she understands and agrees to sign. She signs the permit as Shuta confirms he has received her signature. Her retainers pause at the door, pledging to be her allies until the very end. Left alone, Ricolette slumps to the floor, a solitary figure overwhelmed by her situation. A long-haired person smiles faintly, one eye shadowed, their hands clasped in quiet observation. A blonde woman, Ricolette, weeps in despair, crying out that she desperately wanted to see him. Overcome by her sorrow, she collapses onto the floor, letting out a gut-wrenching wail of anguish. Outside her chambers, the red-haired Shuta and his accomplice Kurufaru are seen in the Grand Hall. Kurufaru calls out to Shuta, observing that the Empress did not sign the crucial order. With a cunning smirk, Shuta turns to his companion, confidently telling her to look again. He holds the document to the light, revealing its secret nature to the confused Kurufaru. A faint magical light emanates from the parchment as the text begins to transform. Kurufaru gasps as the simple permit magically rewrites itself into the official purge order. Shuta explains his ruse, knowing the Empress's character would prevent her from signing directly. The back of Kurufaru's head is shown as she silently processes the clever deception. He admits that he simply applied some magic to the document beforehand to ensure their success. Kurufaru praises Shuta's brilliance, admitting his plan made obtaining the signature surprisingly easy. He commands her to take the forged document to her territory at once, urging her to hurry. At a stately residence, a young man with dark hair, Linus, looks out from within. A sharp, commanding knock suddenly sounds at the door of Linus's residence. Cautiously, Linus opens the door just a crack, asking who might be there. Two men in formal attire announce that Empress Ricolette has summoned him to go with them. Linus is immediately suspicious, questioning why a noble would have business with him now. The men remain silent and evasive, their military bearing noted by the wary Linus. He presses them, asking if the matter is secret or if he is simply not trusted. His direct questioning infuriates the two men, their composure finally breaking. They lunge forward with drawn swords, calling him a dog of Gramont and screaming for his death. Linus is shown beaten and bound on the floor, his attackers looming over him. A companion comments that with Linus dead, the safety of the Empire will be assured. One of the attackers explains that the barrier protecting Gramont will now be broken. Linus understands this is a plot to allow someone to seize control of the Empire. His thoughts turn to the Barca family, wondering if they could orchestrate such a malicious plan. The captured attacker wonders if the Crown Prince is aware of what his mother's doing. His accomplice realizes they plan to install Prince Vilas on the throne and become his guardians. Linus connects the dots, understanding the conspiracy is about the line of succession. He whispers in horror, realizing the Emperor must have been deposed or has abdicated. A close-up on his eyes shows the shock and dawning comprehension of the situation. The bound attacker's grim expression seems to confirm that Linus's guess is correct. From behind, Linus reasons that if the Empress was worried about the Prime Minister, this move makes sense. He asks the captured men if it was Empress Ricolette who gave them their orders. The attacker defiantly asks if Linus truly believes he will speak so easily. Linus smiles confidently, pointing a finger and assuring him that he believes he will. With a magical shimmer, both assassins are bound and fall into a deep slumber. His companion notes that the barrier only made them sleep, so they didn't necessarily talk. He remarks on his own nice personality for letting them sleep instead of torturing them. Linus tells his female companions that he is leaving for the castle on urgent business. Grabbing a weapon for the journey, he asks the two of them to guard the house. The women wish him well, telling him to be careful as he quickly departs. As he adjusts his cloak, Linus thinks about the Prime Minister and the ambitious Empress. He stands on a stone path, acknowledging that her ideals clash with the Empire's. Placing his hands on a table, he resolves that he must go to the castle. With his fox-like familiar, he calls upon the princess's power to teleport to a castle room. He crouches low upon arrival, poised to launch himself into action. Arriving at his destination, he finds the Prime Minister surrounded by soldiers who shout his name. Linus dives forward with incredible speed, yelling for the Prime Minister to get down. He powerfully shoves the two would-be assassins aside, saving the old man. The Prime Minister lets out a grunt as he is knocked safely to the ground. The rescued man and his retinue express their immense gratitude for Linus's sudden arrival. The Prime Minister asks if assassins came to his residence as well. Linus confirms it, asking if the Emperor has been deposed as the assassins claimed. With a grim nod, the Prime Minister acknowledges that this is indeed the case. He suddenly explodes with rage, shouting that he is the one who truly controls the Empire. He furiously rants about the foolishness of those who would celebrate his supposed retirement. Linus calmly states that the nobles who attacked him were of a similar, foolish mindset. The Prime Minister identifies the attackers as the third and fourth sons of a count. He muses that a very clever person must be advising Empress Ricolette for this plan to work. Linus asks for more information about the mastermind, a woman named Kurifaru. One of the captured sons identifies the instigators as either Shuta or Kurifaru. He then frantically screams that Kurifaru has nothing to do with it, trying to protect her. The Prime Minister asks Linus if they should interrogate the prisoners further, but Linus declines. The prisoner mutters that they were only following the plan and know nothing more. Linus reasons that Kurifaru, Ricolette's childhood governess, must have taught her better. The Prime Minister asks if Linus believes the Empress is aware of the situation. Linus agrees that it's highly unlikely someone so close to Ricolette is being kept in the dark. The Prime Minister states that regardless of the details, Linus must take responsibility. He coldly informs a stunned Linus that this responsibility means he will be sentenced to death. Linus stares back in shock, questioning the Prime Minister's unbelievable declaration. A strange vision appears of a cheerful young man in modern clothes holding a newspaper. The scene shifts to a girl with long hair and headphones, a date marked beside her. A final image shows a girl with short silver hair, another date appearing in a red circle.